slavery.
I'm
Then a
trying to
lot of
find
shit
out how
is
far we
slavery.
gonna go with that philosophy. That's all.
Then a lot of shit is slavery. Just take it as that. A lot of shit is slavery that we don't want to consider it. A
No,
lot of
I mean,
shit is slavery.
I think the difference between like an NFL player and like a wage worker, like an hourly worker, is the ability to use the NFL as an opportunity to be in positions to control or to like head industry, right? Like you're not going to like in the NFL, you do have the opportunity to make the type of money that could put you in a position to where you can become an employer yourself, or you can enter into an industry as somebody who owns a company or somebody who like has some type of ownership based on what your ceiling of the NFL. Like it could put you. I mean, even just having a consistent long NFL career will put you in a better.
Understand what you're saying, Doma. Doma, understand what you're saying. But let's be realistic. If I just give you a statistic that 85% of the players, right, let's say 2 in 10, 2 in 10 actually actualize that dream. You only have a 20% chance. That means if you send 10 children to college, only 2 will graduate, right? You are saying that, is that a realistic argument to make? If you only have a 20%, less than 20% chance of that happening. Because the argument that you're making that some do it, that's not even some. That's 20%. Imagine any product with an 80% failure rate. Would you recommend that product? Any product in the world. If you have a watch and 80% of them don't work. If you have a washing machine and 80% of them don't work. If you have a TV and 80% of them don't work. Now make the argument now based on that knowledge that I've just given, that 80% of these players who were millionaires in their time are absolutely nothing 7 years later. Now make the argument that you're making on that information. 80% failure rate.
Yeah, I mean, I get the point. I'm not. Yeah, I mean, I get the point, but I still think it's a huge distinction between being like a blue collar worker working in a factory and an opportunity to play in the NFL.
80% of blue collar worker will do better than an NFL player in the long run. Would you agree with me on that? That 80% of blue collar workers at the end when they retire would be in better position than 80% of NFL player. Do you agree or disagree with me on that? Want to look up the statistics? So no, so the argument.
Let's not get caught up in the
I know you're
NFL.
trying. I know you're trying. I know you're trying, but I'm going to box you in.
You make a good argument. I do think there are some nuances there when it comes to, because like you can say the same thing about like actors, right? Like people who want to get into entertainment, or people who want to get into music, right? You can kind of make those same arguments, but I think it's the what the ceiling represents, not necessarily what the bottom, because like the ceiling of a McDonald's worker isn't the same as the ceiling of an NFL player. You know what I mean? Or the ceiling of, a factory worker isn't the same ceiling. Because ultimately what happens is when you fail at the NFL, you kind of end up with a good chance you end up in blue collar work.
Let's argue from the opposite direction. Let's argue the floor. You're arguing the ceiling. Let's argue the floor. The floor of a McDonald's worker and the floor of an NFL worker are arguably the same.
The same? No,
I tell you that the likelihood outcome is that most persons who start in fast food elevate higher than most persons who went to the NFL. Based on the conclusion that the failure rate never happened.
Practice players can average roughly like 80. I mean, more
for
than that.
How many years?
So that ain't the same as like an entry level McDonald's.
How many years a practice player allowed to practice in the NFL? How many years? Him get 3 years the maximum. 3 to 4 years the maximum. Because I was down at Dolphin Stadium. I used to go to Dolphin Stadium with practice players, and they rotate them out so fast. Because
they rotate them to different teams. Yeah, it's a tough process.
Because every year Every year, so 10,000 practice players come from the college.
But yeah, let's not get caught up in that. So, do you think, Stu P, right, when it comes to the worker, right, the everyday worker, McDonald's and all of that, would it be still slavery if certain financial thresholds were met? As far as them being able to, live, sustain themselves. Because I don't look at it as slavery per se, because you have so many flexible options now in today versus
it is slavery. It is slavery.
Your environment.
Let me define. Let me tell you what me define as slavery. It is slavery if the worker has no contribution in the decision-making process. Meaning that if I'm a part of the organization and there's no union representative that represent the workers in the decision-making of the organization, it is slavery. Because that's fundamentally what slavery was.
We're getting a more concrete definition. Okay. Does that definition
of slavery
apply to everybody else?
That's
what's
my
your definition of slavery?
Well,
I'm trying to make sure all y'all definitions
my definition of slavery is like, that's got to be a lot more tied to not having rights. Like, you know what I'm saying? Not being able to be, able to use your tax dollars and call the police and they defend you too. And I think that's a little bit more what I would have
within
to
this
mean when I'm saying slavery. But
within this context,
so I'm talking right for my conversation. I wanted to be talking about like the dependency for the resources, right? Like there is a dependency created there, and my problem with it is that you can kind of see that there's a connection between the people who decide to pay you what they pay you and the people who set the prices of the set that you got to buy with this number, right? So like they put you at a certain number on both sides of this scale, and it intentionally prevents you from having the surplus. And for a lot of people, it prevents them from being able to really save up and get out of that perpetual kind of poverty. Like that's more of what I'm talking about. My conversation.
Right.
I certainly wouldn't call that like a slave with no rights, but there's a dependency there between there's a trap involved with you receiving just enough money to be able to feed yourself, and you know what I'm saying, and for them to be able to blame your lack of upward mobility on your bad decisions when they know they just giving you just a little too, you know what I'm saying, ain't giving you enough to be able to save you. That's what I'm saying.
To keep you on that treadmill. So I want to jump in real quick. I'm going to read us a very quick article on Milton Friedman to give people a little bit of background. And I think this will also be instructive for Brass to show why Logic said called him the best, because it's not necessarily any of us on the panel, but in Americana, insofar as a thought leader, insofar as economics is concerned, he is a highly venerated figure. So, you could say he received the Nobel Peace Prize, right? So that will qualify on some level as quote unquote the best, right? So let me read this article real quick. It says Milton Friedman was born on July 31st, 1912. His work in pioneering monetary theory at the University of Chicago would win him the Nobel Peace Prize for Economic Sciences in 1976 and popularize a new school of free market economics. And it was called the Chicago School. He went on to advise a host of political leaders around the world, including President Ronald Reagan and UK Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. He also brought his views to a national audience on public television through 2 PBS miniseries based on his book, Free to Choose, in 1980 and 1990. Here are 6 quotations from his copious works. 1, democratic socialism is an oxymoron. It is wide, and this is a quote, right? So this is a quote from his book. It is widely believed that politics and economics are separate and largely unconnected, that individual freedom is a political problem and material welfare an economic problem, and that any kind of political arrangements can be combined with any kind of economic arrangements. The chief contemporary manifestation of this idea is the advocacy of democratic socialism by many who condemn out of hand the restrictions on individual freedom imposed by totalitarian socialism in Russia, and who are persuaded that it is possible for a country to adopt the essential features of Russian economic arrangements and yet to still ensure individual freedom through political arrangements. My thesis is that such a view is a delusion, that there is an intimate connection between economics and politics, that only certain combinations of political and economic arrangements are possible, and that, in particular, a society with a society which is socialist cannot also be democratic in the sense of guaranteeing individual freedom. Economic arrangements play a dual role in the promotion of a free society. On the one hand, freedom in economic arrangements is itself a component of freedom broadly understood. So economic freedom is an end in itself. In the second place, economic freedom is also an indispensable means towards the achievement of political freedom. I actually agree with that part, but he's being deceptive. Welfare programs harm the moral fiber of a nation. Woo, that's a doozy. Let me read that one again. Welfare programs harm the moral fiber of a nation. And let me get my Dr. Umar on and read it. Let me get my Umar on and read it a third time. Welfare programs harm the moral fiber of a nation. This Jew is crazy. So he goes on to say, it is very hard to achieve good objectives through bad means. The welfare programs have an insidious effect on the moral fiber of both the people who administer the programs and the people who are supposedly benefiting from it. For the people who administer it, it instills in them a feeling of almost godlike power. For the people who are supposedly benefiting, it instills a feeling of childlike dependence. Their capacity for personal decision-making atrophies. The result is that the programs involved are a misuse of money. They do not achieve the objective which it was their intention to achieve. But far more important than this, they tend to rot away the very fabric that holds a decent society together. Now, there's 6 more points. I'm not going to just keep on reading out everything, but that gives you a basic overview of his political framework. So who want to jump in first on them two?
It's obvious to
Let
me get it. Because it's obvious to see, because there's been plenty of critiques of Friedman and the arguments that he makes about things like welfare, because the irony in what he's saying is that you can say the government providing for the social welfare of its citizens is immoral, but the exploitation of workers isn't. Not pay, like, to say that the government providing for people who don't have is immoral, but a quote unquote job creator, right, who we value in this economy, not paying their workers a livable wage isn't considered immoral. So once you introduce the morality conversation, Friedman's arguments get flipped on his head, because the greatest failure of morality that we see is the greed that we see in corporatism. Is the greed that we see with trickle down economics. Like, I mean, and even like literally to the point of making it a moral argument, he introduces the hypocrisy. He introduces the contradiction, right? Because we're saying that the elite class, the job creator class, right, which was established based off of exploitation, right? You don't have the elite class in America without the exploitation of enslaved Africans and the genocide of Native Americans. And then the further exploitation of immigrant workers and other lower class workers to be able to establish the corporations and the companies and the businesses that we argue are the hallmark of any strong economy, right? So what Friedman is doing is he's participating in the criminalization of poverty. That it is those who don't have, and who don't have because of structural reasons that we then turn around and say, well, to provide for those people who have been left out, then it is a failure in and of itself, and not the fact that there is a society where there are people who can hoard wealth and hoard resources and then point the finger at the people who don't have.
I may be
Yeah,
wrong. I may be wrong in his explanation, but I've heard other people make that argument. I think they rebuttals to something like that would be like regarding the job, what I was saying earlier. I feel you, like they shouldn't be paying their workers non-livable wages, but in Milton Friedman's mind, right, he might look at that as like it's basically a voluntary job. You know what I'm saying? That is not exploitative, even though we know it can be. I guess in his mind, it's essentially not. It's not as extreme as people think. You know, he'll make a talk upon like wages, maybe determined by like productivity, and he'll try to get some nuance there. But I feel you. I mean, regarding the moral argument, you can flip it on his head. You know what I'm saying? But I've heard other people make certain arguments regarding how like to the person receiving certain welfare benefits, it may hurt the fabric of this country and what we deem as being productive. And I think that's like an overgeneralized statement. But I think they're more so talking about people who fall into that like extreme category of like generational welfare, not wanting to have with mobility and just sitting on their ass. But you can't apply that to everybody.
But I mean, but that's the myth that but that's the criminalization of poverty though. Like what Friedman does is he ignores every other social dynamic in order to just identify what he feels like or people who want to quote unquote live off the system. Right? Like he has to ignore the fact that people that when we look at different groups in society, that their experience and their access to resources and capital have never been the same. Especially when you're dealing with, either dealing with an immigrant population or you're dealing with or you're dealing with a black population, right? Like you can't argue the immorality of welfare programs, but at the same time ignore the ways in which resources and opportunity have been systemically and systematically denied for certain groups.
Right.
That makes no sense.
Right. You definitely can't.
It's a convenient argument for somebody who hasn't experienced the type of being ostracized or marginalized in a society. Friedman wrote that specifically to allow for rich people to be able to criminalize those who don't have, and not and to what they do is they over essentialize the argument by making like the point that Fetty just made about, oh well, it's people who don't want to work. Oh, if the government gives you something, that means you don't want to work. But that would never be applied to you. You wouldn't apply that to New Deal policies like the GI Bill, shit like that. Like where historically we can look and see how social safety net programs were used by white people specifically as a way for upward mobility.
Can I give my definition of slavery or wage slavery? And as it relates to slavery without wage, slavery or wage slavery is when you have to work for someone else to gain things that you should be providing for yourself and that should come freely, food, clothing, and shelter. If you're working for someone else to attain those things, that's slavery. And if they're getting the vast amount of your wages and they own the means of your production, and these are things that you have a right to freely on the planet Earth, to provide your own food, your own clothes, and your own home. So if you're working for those things that are freely given to you or freely as a right, I believe, as a human right, you're in slavery. Either because on the plantation, you were still, they considered it, they provided you a place to live, food to eat. And this was sort of the only compensation for your wages. So now they just changed the wages, but the principle is the same, that you're working for someone else that you should and have the right to provide for yourself freely.
Dude, I'm going to give you something. Go and read up on Abraham Maslow and Maslow hierarchy of needs. That's not a right. Food, clothing, and shelter is not a right. A right is something like the ability to breed. You have to earn food, clothing, and shelter. Right? So I don't understand your definition because you say
That's
food,
a
clothing, and
good
shelter.
point. That's a good point, Suki.
Well, no, but I think it's a question of what does it look like to earn it though, right? Because like to earn, like for example, when we lived off the land, you had to earn it by tilling the land.
Or
if we
that's correct.
Right,
that's
and so
correct.
it's
or
like if you wanted clothing, right, you had to kill an animal, strip it, turn it into that whatever. If you wanted to build a house, right, but when here's the difference though when we talk about earning in a capitalist society.
I'm talking about his definition. I'm talking about his definition. Is his definition?
Right,
yeah.
Right, and I feel like because I'm referencing his definition too, but it's when we say earn in a capitalist society, and then we talk about earning something in a more natural society, then like that's the issue that we come because like yes, everything requires work. If you want a home without paying for it, you build it, right? That requires work, right? You earn your home by building it. But in the context of like rent, for example, you quote unquote earn your home by paying rent or paying a mortgage by the labor market, the labor process as we understand it. And so it's how we understand labor and who controls labor and who dictates what it means to quote unquote earn.
But now you're having a different discussion on what you have a different discussion on what he's having. Because if you have to give all your work to an individual and an organization, and the result of your work does not extend to you having achieved those needs, those entry-level needs that Maslow talk about, it is slavery. If I give all my work, that means my work is severely undervalued. So how do we value work in a capitalistic situation? What is work and how do you value it? Does a person who sweep the street and keep it clean, does he have a right to attain food, clothing, and shelter? Does a person who do the most minimal task among us, what should he be able to achieve? And that's the definition of what a capitalistic society value work as. What can the lowliest among us achieve when he does all the work that he's supposed to do? If he's not achieving those things, that is slavery. Would you agree or disagree, DQ? If the lowliest of us, when he put in the work, if he can't achieve food, clothing, and shelter, he's a slave.
I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna let y'all keep building. If it was a time travel and we was actually able to meet a slave, and we told him that working in the factory was slavery, he'll slap the shit out of us. But I'm gonna go ahead and just keep it going.
Be like, nigga, you ain't got no callus on your hands.
You don't know what you talking about, son.
Yeah, but that's context though, right? So it's like all that shows is that they've made slavery easier by how they taught us to understand labor and what we should be willing to accept. So it's like, slavery, chattel slavery as it existed back then was never sustainable. That was never sustainable. You were never going to just continue to be able to control a population through force in that way. And so what whiteness understood was that if you make it seem as if they have a choice, if you make it seem like they are choosing this, then slavery will be just fine. Right. And so which is actually a more insidious form, is because you end up enslaved and not know it. That's why, like, that's why race plays such an important role in maintaining the type of economic and labor disadvantages that exist, because throughout history, especially as we come into more modern history, there was the most struggles that existed had to do with the haves and the have-nots. Like when people throughout history recognized that it was more of them suffering than it was that the people who had the foot on their neck, that's where revolutions took place, right? But what happens is that when you
uprisings in American and in human history had to do with labor issues. It was usually the working class and the labor class that did the uprising and made the most change in human history.
Now, what happens when you introduce race, right? When you introduce race into the equation, you end up with a situation where even though majority of the people are dealing with some type of don't have any type of labor control, right? Majority of the people are having to work for a small population that are controlling the resources and controlling access to resources and labor. But when poor whites or poor people, like poor people in general, but specifically poor whites, are able to say, well, at least I'm not a nigga, they're willing to maintain the social structure, even though it works for their own economic, works against their own economic benefit. So it's like, if you look at who's fucking over poor white people, it's other white people, right? When you look at who's taking, hold on, let me finish this. When you look at who's taking their pensions, who's fucking up their retirement, who's cutting their wages, who's cutting their hours, like when you look at who's fucking over the white worker, it's another white man. But race teaches these poor white people to say, no, it's the immigrants, it's the niggas on welfare, right? It's all these other groups of people who don't look like us. And so I'm willing to defend the Jeff Bezos, a white man, against these niggas because he is also a white man like me. Even though the circumstances of most poor white people is more aligned with the circumstances of poor black people. But because race creates that divide.
I put the Lyndon B. Johnson quote in there yesterday, right?
Oh yeah,
if you can convince white men that they better than niggas, right? You won't have to steal from them. They'll empty their pockets out for you.
I mean, there you go. Like, yeah, I mean, which we know. It's also a book called "What's the Problem with Kansas," where the author of that book breaks down how Kansas voters, like, traditionally vote against their own economic benefit in order to maintain or vote for what they believe to be cultural values. Like, and now that's a national issue, right? If we look at Donald Trump, one of the main issues with the going into the 2024 election was the economy. Everybody was talking about inflation. Everybody was talking about wages. Everybody was talking about what they could afford, right? And then for whatever reason, they believed that this rich millionaire that was running for office would have their economic interest more than, I mean, whoever else. So we're not gonna act like Kamala would just be like, oh, she's for the poor man, but still, right? Like, just if we just look at it from the context of racism, because if you look at it, like, none of Donald Trump's policies were to the benefit of poor people. It was all, even during his first term, it wasn't as bad as his second term, but majority of his policies work to the benefit of, like, for example, making a big deal about getting rid of the estate tax. Well, the estate tax is something that only less than 10% of the population would even give a fuck about, right? And so, and then even if you look at his tax cuts in his first term, for people that was making $40,000-$50,000, those tax cuts expired. But people making over $300,000, the tax cuts were permanent. So you had somebody who clearly showed a disdain for people who lived in poverty, but for whatever reason, well, not for whatever reason, but in order to maintain their cultural beliefs and cultural values that they wanted to see in government, they're willing to vote for somebody who's going to fuck them over economically.
So you saying, white people deliberately they vote against their own interests on purpose just to maintain their cultural position? Is that kind of how you put it? That's crazy.
That's what the evidence shows, I would say.
We had an argument like that about how we're voting for the Republican Party.
I think it's a study done in 2019 about that. I got to dig it up. I think they done a study on that back in 2019.
But that would just be describing the Republican Party, though, wouldn't it? That ain't just politics as a whole.
No, that's America. That's America.
Yeah. No, I would say it's more pronounced. I would definitely say it's more pronounced with the Republican Party, but it's the same thing with Democrats, because Democrats, as much as they talk about caring about poor people, as much as they talk about giving a fuck about, society and all of that, they capitulate to the same corporate donors that Republicans do. Like for example, I just made a.
I'm talking about
said
the
what?
people who vote. I said you talking about like what happens at the top end of the Democrat elites. You know what I'm saying? They're you know what I'm saying? I guess whatever their big dog executive committees do. But I'm talking about the people voting for the Democrats. They're not the ones trying to maintain some sort of a cultural you know, rigidness. Like they're trying to get some change within the culture. That's at least how I see it voting wise. Would you
Oh
think that's
no,
wrong
that's
too?
true. That's no, that's true, right? Like, so I agree with at least like the cultural values that we see on the left aren't as rigid or aren't as bigoted. That's true. But the left politicians though themselves, like for example, like you just had a handful of Democrats who signed this pledge that was like, you know, because you got all these Democratic socialists that are coming to rise in the Democratic Party. And so you had a handful of Democrats sign this pledge that says that they call it their pledge to America, where they pledge to be capitalist.
It's called the Promise to America. We went over it in here like a few days ago. Yeah, they was saying we are capitalists. You know, yeah.
But look at some of those districts that the people who signed it represent. So it's like, I forget his last name is Gray, right? He represents California's, it's like 14th district, I think. But he's up there in Fresno, like those areas. I forget the name of the county. I can pull it. It's in my notes. But that particular county, for example, that this California representative is a part of, that the agricultural district rakes in like 30-40 billion dollars, right? In that district, rakes in 30 to 40 billion dollars. That district and the counties that reflect that district have a higher poverty rate than the entire state. One of the highest poverty rates in the state. Even it's specifically a higher poverty rate than the national average. It's like almost 20%. The national average was like, I think the last time they checked was like 11 or 12%. So you have a district that makes 30 to 40 billion dollars, but most of the people who help generate that are considered low wage workers, right? So these people who are claiming capitalism as if it's a benefit to Americans, their constituents are living in poverty. Their constituents are some of the poorest and are some of the lowest paid people. It's completely contradictory towards like.
Let me second that. I dropped a video in the chat last night. I was watching it. How poor communities subsidize rich communities. And when we use poor, we can substitute black and poor white people communities. Because per acre, infrastructure costs the same. So infrastructure in the suburbs, to maintain it, costs the same as in the cities. But the taxes generated in the cities are far greater than that generated in the suburbs. But when we look at it, what they're doing is that they're speaking to their suburb base. They're saying to them, oh, we understand what you're saying. We know what you're saying. We're with you. But in fact, it's going to and there's no sense to beat that out. Always will and always shall. Right? Always will. So when we look at it and we say, what's new? There's nothing new under the sun in America. When our poor people is going to subsidize it some more. But the only reason what you're in predicament is because of socialism, and people believe it. People actually believe it.
Yeah. That nigga stupid.
Blue circling the job. Yeah, I seen him right there. I just wanted to hide.
Hey, Corey, you got to mute up your mic live.
My
Mute
bad.
up, Court. You good? Yeah, we live today, so yeah, keep it peppy, keep it going.
But I like what you read there, Haskell, man. I don't know if you still around, but I think you nailed it. You set a good groundwork for establishing what he really trying to accomplish. Because a lot of times the way he say things, it might kind of come across as a little confusion, right? You might come up out of there not knowing exactly what he really got in mind and think that he talk about some solutions. But whole time the only thing he really interested in is tipping the scales in the corporate direction, right? When you hear him talking about rolling back regulations, you can rest assured that he's not doing it in order to be fair about it. You know what I'm saying? He's certainly not looking for a reason or a way to be able to share some of the profits from the deregulation of safety and health control things. He's actually trying to do it and keep it all to himself. But you know what I'm saying? I
Yeah,
remember what you
that's why when the minute you said he's a libertarian, right? I'm not even familiar with the individual. I already knew those were the kind of arguments he'd be making because that's the classical modern libertarian argument.
that's what we got.
Their form of capitalism is even more predatory than a modern conservative, right? They want to roll back regulations as much as possible so they can be as predatory as possible. And right, like when it's talking about morality, they want to hide behind the illusion of having this moral superiority of don't treat on me and I don't want the government telling me what to do and I should be able to run my business however it is I see fit, right? Without anybody imposing on that. But it's really a veil for them to just be predatory to the common people.
At the end of the day, yep.
Are you saying that? What are you saying now, Brass and some? Are you saying that the American system is predatory? Is that what you're implying? That the system that we're is predatory? That's what it sounds like you're saying. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying libertarians.
Not libertarian. The system that exists today.
Oh, the system that exists today is predatory. But I was just pointing out how libertarians want to make it even more predatory than it is. So like things like we were discussing yesterday with Mamdani imposing that click to cancel bill, that is an example of regulating a corporation. You understand that? Like that is a regulation on a corporation to make it easier for people to cancel subscriptions because they've been being predatory, raking in millions of dollars, constantly charging people without them even realizing it. And then when you go to cancel, it's so difficult to do, right? He imposed this regulation to stop that. Libertarians want to say, no, you shouldn't be able to do that. If people are too dumb to stop their subscription without a click to cancel button, that's on them.
One time I tried canceling something. I didn't remember the password. And it took me forever to cancel it. And then you don't own shit nowadays because half a way I have it digital. I'm my Audible account. I have those 200 books on Audible. And one time I lost the password for Amazon. And it's like it was more to get back. Because it's predatory. Everybody trying a way to get one up on you.
Exactly. Right. They tell you got to call and speak to a representative, and then the representative got to approve it with their supervisor, and then they can cancel it. It's like, they make you go through all these walls to cancel a subscription. Mamdani said, nah, we're going to regulate that shit. That's socialism.
Yeah.
Well, to be clear,
to move a subscription to a different email, it's one of the most difficult things.
Niggas better start reading them terms and conditions.
So that's what you said? We should read the terms and conditions?
No, I'm saying it is a way to finesse motherfuckers away, like the fact that the terms and conditions is real, you know, it's real drawn out. Like 99% of motherfuckers don't even read the terms and conditions when they download the app.
You know that
Absolutely,
when
absolutely.
you buy
Fetty, you're 1,000,000% correct, and that's exactly what the libertarian hangs his hat on, is saying that, you know, if people are too stupid or too lazy to take the time to figure out how to cancel their subscription or read terms and conditions before they sign things, then whatever happens to them after that happens to them. That's their fault. And the government shouldn't regulate corporations for being able to take advantage of that. Right? That is exactly the libertarians' argument. And that's why I say they're the most predatory. And that's why I didn't even know who this individual was you're talking about today. But I just know based on that, he would be making those kind of arguments.
They
So
said
here's
Milton,
what I
they said
want
he
to,
the GOAT, bro. I'm saying if y'all was to debate him, y'all have a tough time.
I mean, he did get a Nobel Peace Prize, so I think in
You'll have some rebuttals for y'all.
in America, in economic theory, he is kind of held at like a Michael Jordan level, right? Now, what I want to address with Friedman is his duplicity, right? He's a liar, all right? So his first point that he makes, he speaks on democratic socialism, right? He says democratic socialism is an oxymoron. And then he goes on to mischaracterize what democratic socialism is. He says that it is widely believed that politics and economics are separate and largely unconnected, right? That's the first point that he makes. He then goes on to make the argument that the chief contemporary manifestation of this idea is the advocacy of democratic socialism, right? So he makes the argument that democratic socialism separates politics and economics when it's the absolute opposite. Democratic socialism argues that there's a symbiotic relationship between the two. So, and here he belies his own deceptiveness, right? Because he says that democratic socialists try to condemn the restriction of individual freedoms, right? That were imposed, like in the example of like a totalitarianism in Russia, right? But then at the same time, they try to ensure individual freedom. These are his words. So by definition, what he's describing there is someone trying to create a symbiosis. That's not someone trying to fragment two different things and saying, okay, the politics is over here and the economics is over here. Democratic socialism, the way he characterized it, is actually the exact opposite of how he characterized it. And I don't think that was by accident. He's a liar.
He was creating a boogeyman. He created democratic socialism like a boogeyman.
Yeah. The reason he is because he doesn't even understand that democratic socialists have a problem with Stalinism. Right? Democratic socialists have a problem with the USSR. They have a problem. What were you saying?
No, I was saying he perfectly understands. But go ahead. He's being disingenuous. But go ahead.
Exactly. Yeah, I actually agree. Like he knows he's speaking to the general population that might not be privy to some of this stuff. Right? So it's easy to kind of try to mischaracterize democratic socialism as people that are trying to instill socialism, in its full pure form, or even its totalitarian or authoritarian form we see in the USSR or even China. When democratic socialists have their issues with those examples of quote unquote socialism, because they do believe in a democratic process. And most of the ones you see today, they're not trying to get rid of capitalism, right? And that's the problem a lot of pure socialists have with the DSA, actually. They actually call the DSA a bunch of fake socialists because they actually are just trying to add more socialism to our capitalist economy, right? They're actually trying to add socialism through our democracy. So that's why they're taking office positions to try to push and advocate for policies through our democratic process, right, to instill more socialism in our capitalist market. They're not trying to tear down the capitalist market and make it a completely socialistic one. That's not what the DSA tries to do.
So check out his double speak here, right? He says the chief contemporary manifestation of this idea, right, is the advocacy of democratic socialism by many who condemn out of hand the restrictions on individual freedom imposed by totalitarian socialism in Russia, and who are persuaded that it is possible for a country to adopt the essential features of Russian economic arrangements and yet to ensure individual freedom through political arrangements, right? So listen to how he just characterized democratic socialism. He characterized it correctly there, I believe, Truist, right? Because this is what he said. Let me repeat it again. He says that the aim of democratic socialism is to adopt the essential features of Russian economic arrangements, right? Now, you can substitute Russian with whoever. The economic arrangements.
Yeah, economic. Yes, he's correct at the economic part.
Right.
But continue.
But listen. But look how tricky he is, right? Because if a person isn't keen, they'll fall for the linguistic three-card Monty that he's doing, right? Look at the double speak. He's slick, right? Look at it. He says okay, so he says the essential features of Russian economic arrangements and yet to ensure individual freedom through political arrangements. Isn't that a symbiosis? If you go back to the very first paragraph, if you go back, he says democratic socialism is where people try to disconnect politics from economics. And then 5 sentences down, he says democratic socialism is where they try to integrate politics and economics. Double speak, right? And that's why when I have these conversations, for me, Truist, it isn't about isms, right? Socialism, capitalism, cronyism. You can argue ad infinitum about isms, right? For me, first and foremost, for societies to flourish and thrive at a high level, the first thing is righteousness, equity, and fairness, right? This guy is a liar. And he's a type of liar who will lie right to your face, use clever language to trick you, right? So it's one thing to have a philosophy. So long as you're consistent with that philosophy and you have conviction, even if I believe what you're saying is bullshit, I can respect it and I can work with you. This guy, he's not being honest about his position. He's playing a game. That's where I'm at with him.
He absolutely is, because even on the economic part, democratic. So we have examples of democratic socialism in the fucking Nordic countries, right? Like they want to they don't want a completely socialistic economy. They want a mixed economy. They just want more socialism in the capitalist market, right? They don't advocate for a state control of banking, right? They don't advocate for a fully socialist economy. They want certain aspects of socialism engraved in the capitalist market, like you see in the Nordic countries. They don't want full-blown Stalinism. So he's being disingenuous for sure. But it's McCarthyism. It's absolutely McCarthyism. It's a way to scare people away from moving away from capitalism.
Now, listen to this bit of further trickery by this Ashkenaz. He says here, so I asked Google.
Oh, he's an Ashkenaz? He's an Ashkenazi?
Yeah, he is.
Oh shit. Okay.
Ironically, though, he was secular. He was an atheist or an agnostic, one of them. But
yeah, they
he
always say
didn't.
that. They always say
Right,
they are.
right. So check this out, right? So I asked Google, was Milton Friedman opposed to FEMA? Everyone should know what FEMA is, I hope, right? Because that is a government program. That is, in fact, socialism. That is, in fact, a welfare program, right? So it says, yes, Milton Friedman was fundamentally opposed to the concept of FEMA and federal disaster relief programs as they conflicted with his core libertarian philosophies. FEMA was established in 1979, a few years before Friedman's most famous works on government bureaucracy. However, his consistent economic principles directly targeted such agencies. His opposition was rooted in three primary arguments. Moral hazard. He argued that federal disaster relief distorts the true signal of risk. By providing subsidized federal flood insurance and government-funded rebuilding, the government encourages people to live in disaster-prone areas like hurricane zones or floodplains, knowing they will be bailed out at taxpayer expense. Now think about how crazy this nigga is.
Disgusting.
Right?
Absolutely disgusting.
According to this crazy Ashkenazi Jew, the entire Florida, not just Florida, Louisiana.
Every coastal fucking region damn near.
Yeah. But according to him, anyone who lives there is essentially looking to game the system to get bailed out by taxpayer money. So if they were being honest citizens, all of those coastal regions, particularly the ones that are in the hurricane zone, Louisiana, Florida, Georgia, not so much. They need to those places need to be depopulated to be consistent with his purported philosophy here. Right? Absolutely stupid, absolutely ridiculous, right? And I don't believe that he believes that. For the record, he's a liar. Now, think about this. Hurricane zones or floodplains aren't the only natural disasters that human beings face, particularly in America. Truist, I'm going to let you take it away. Can you think of another section of the country that is frequently ravaged by acts of God or natural disasters that you can think of? And what would those natural disasters be? What am I angling at here?
Are you outside of hurricanes? Are you talking about like earthquakes and like earthquakes or tornadoes, earthquakes? Okay. So like the Bible Belt, how they get hit with tornadoes and twisters all the fucking time?
Right. So according to him, FEMA shouldn't exist for them either.
Yeah.
Right? The people in California California sits on huge fault lines, that area needs to be depopulated also, or those people are just living there because they just want to live off the government. If something happens,
all the rich white folk that get money and retire in Hawaii, they need to get the hell out of Hawaii as well. They trying to scam the system too, apparently. Like it's ridiculous. Where are you getting this information on this gentleman, by the way? Could you post the sources so I could read more into them?
Well, I just Googled that. Let me see here. There's some source. One is Yahoo Finance. So I just Googled. It was just a quick Google search. I put, was Milton Friedman opposed to FEMA?
Oh, okay.
Let me see if, because some of this I think is kind of the sources based on his overall philosophy. They're basically making the corollary. They're making a corollary argument that he would look at it that way. I don't know how much of it is his actual stated position on disaster relief programs. So I'm looking through that now. All right. So according to Yahoo Finance, they're the ones who are saying that he argued that Federal disaster relief distorts the true signal of risk. By providing subsidized federal flood insurance and government-funded rebuilding, the government encourages people to live in disaster-prone areas like hurricane zones or floodplains, knowing they will be bailed out at taxpayer expense. That's not in quotations. Let me click the link. How Milton Friedman can help us get through Hurricane Milton. So y'all would have to do, I'd have to do either further research on that to see his actual quotes.
He's not against FEMA. He's not against it. He's skeptical of the government aspect. And then it's not just him. It's not just libertarians that feel that way or Friedman. There are Democrats and liberals that believe that we have to take a look at the federal disaster aid because it's creating like a moral hazard. What it is it's encouraging people to, and this is in New Jersey. And the reason I'm saying that is after Sandy, was it Sandy Truist? What was the last one we had? I think it was Hurricane Sandy. We actually had to get involved with some developers. I got questioned on some dumb shit like this of, right, this shit just got destroyed. It's literally right on the river. Why don't we not just not, we'll pay you out, but let's not rebuild right here because of, you've received on one property, people are receiving $1 million payouts 9-10 times. And they just keep rebuilding in the same exact place versus, the city had to step in like, no, this is no longer building, and they just added the shit to the river. So that's it. When they say he's skeptical of FEMA, at least his stated reasons, and I know liberals and libertarians, their stated reasons is not that they're against helping people, they're against people using it to literally just make money off the federal government. It's a grift.
What liberals make that argument? Because usually when I hear liberals talking about FEMA, they're talking about how slow they are and that it doesn't get to the people
More classical liberals, not like
well, classical liberals are libertarians. Classical liberals are libertarians.
Essentially, that's why I said liberals and libertarians. You got the connection. I wasn't trying to say it as a different. I'm just saying FEMA. When people are critical of FEMA, it's not always they're critical of helping people. FEMA in and of itself, you can go through numerous amounts of hazards and go through an audit of that particular arm of the government is just wrought with fraud and it's wrought with it. So yes, it's crazy because you put yourself in a position where you gotta critique a group that's helping people, but it's clear it's just some shit in it that it needs to be investigated from both sides, not just Friedman. But just to be more specific, it's more of a skeptical thing versus you shouldn't live in disaster areas. It's are you building just to get, you got a $900,000 property that you made $10 million on. You keep rebuilding in this wildfire area and the shit happens once every 2 years. You've been paid on this property 10, 12 times per se. So that's it, just to give it some kind of context.
Let me say this, Brass. From everything that I've read and heard about Friedman so far and about libertarianism, it's extremist and it's absolutist, right? There is no program, there is no social order, there is no economic arrangement, there is no political arrangement that isn't subject to human, game playing and manipulation. It's impossible, right? So your position absolutely is one that says, huh?
Not my position. I'm just giving more of a context on his position. It's not my position. I don't have a position on this.
Yeah. I know that.
Okay.
I'm talking about him because what you're saying, right? Or the caveats that you're that you kind of laying out there, that's sensible, right? But that's a difference between saying, okay, as my general ideology, this shouldn't exist. This program intrinsically leads to that, right? As opposed to saying, yes, this needs to exist, but we need to make sure that there are fail safes within however we structure this program to where people won't be able to take advantage and manipulate the system. Those are two disparate viewpoints. And what I'm saying is what you just elucidated is very disparate from what I'm getting from Milton Friedman. You
Well, he
get what
never
I'm
said
saying?
about, I get what you mean, but there's no record of him ever saying abolish FEMA, get rid of it. What he's essentially said is, he's not going to say no one should live in Florida or no one should live in California. He would more likely say, if you choose to live there, then you should assume the risk versus the United States government getting involved with the economy and them assuming the risk. And to a certain extent, I kind of believe that. There are certain, I have property. No, I have nothing. I'm poor. There are properties in Alabama that flood all the time or get hit with hurricanes all the time. Now you could choose to live in New Jersey, right? Where the main thing you only got to worry about is snowstorms and the occasional hurricane that comes up from Florida. But I would never myself live in a place where I'd have to evacuate every 2 years or, because you're constantly rebuilding. In Alabama, there are properties that have just been over the last 6 years. There's been inclement weather enough to where you've had to literally rebuild and start from scratch for 6 years straight. So I'm just saying, at some point, you would have to make it. At some point, in my opinion, whether that's your home, your hometown, it's no longer suitable to live there. You can live somewhere else, like move somewhere else if you have the ability to do it. But if you continuously just rebuild on this land as if you're going to beat Mother Nature, then you should assume those costs because clearly Mother Nature doesn't want you there. And I think, and Truist, landing my plane, Truist, one of the things we've had this conversation before, we'll probably have to have it again. There are some high, and I'm not just talking about poor people, or I'm not just talking about middle class people. There are some people in times in Manhattan that are going to have to make some serious choices in the next 25 years. Because based on how the Hudson River is moving, there'll be certain parts of Times Square that won't even be viable to be able to build billion-dollar buildings on. So,
yeah, but this is what I'm saying. Communities, historically, human beings have always lived near the coastal areas. And the coastal areas have always been exposed to intrinsic risk. We all can agree with that, right? It's part of what makes it more desirable. Easier to get fishing, easier to find food, arable land, closer to rivers. That's always been a part of the historical thing of where human beings live, right? But if the density of those areas generate to me enough taxes that there shouldn't be a problem, right? Because yesterday I was watching something and I went back and looked at it, that poor people pay for rich people standard of living. Because rich people buy acreage where they live don't generate as much tax revenue as those poor people, right? So poor people generate more tax than rich people, and so they're subsidizing rich people. But many persons will tell you that stupid know you're wrong, and I'm not, but it is what it is.
Oh yeah, I don't have no argument with that. Truist brings up a good point when he says libertarians and liberals. Friedman would be more, and y'all could correct me, but when we're saying libertarians, Friedman would be more of he'd be more like a classical liberal than than a staunch libertarian. There are some that believe in the absolutist, but he wasn't an anarchist or he wasn't opposed to every government program.
That's what I was saying. That's what I was trying to say the other day. Like,
No,
I
but
get the sentiment.
libertarians aren't opposed. Like a staunch libertarian isn't.
Libertarians.
A staunch libertarian isn't opposed to every government program.
But you just said they're absolutists a minute ago. I'm
That
just
was
saying
that was the sentiment. That's been y'all sentiment for the past 2 days.
Hold on. Listen. Libertarians.
Hold on.
Libertarians are not
true. Hold on, real quick, true. So you can be an absolutist and advocate for, say, national security. Right? Because Milton Friedman did advocate for collecting public monies to ensure national defense. He was in favor of that, right? I'm about to look up if he was in favor of collecting money to fund firefighters, police, and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure he does, right? So when I use the word absolutist, it doesn't mean in every single solitary instance. But absolutist in, huh?
That would be true. Yes, I understand where you're going. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I agree with
absolutist in the sense where he says something like, "I don't believe in price controls whatsoever."
No,
like it isn't.
Some libertarians though fall under anarchy. Go ahead.
I was gonna say that there is a very extreme form of libertarians that are anarchists that want no government.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
But the majority of them, which is what I think he fall into, want very little government involvement. Right? They're beyond even what modern conservatives want, because modern conservatives fight and talk for small government, right? But a libertarian wants even less than that, right?
It's called the anarcho. We talked about this the other day. That's exactly what I was about to say. It's called the anarcho-capitalist. So when you're saying absolutist, the reason why I'm saying about the absolutist is anarcho-capitalists or anarch-capitalists. They're literally, they reject everything. So I thought that's mainly what you were saying. Like they don't even want like
other side of it. There's anarch-communists.
Yeah, like they don't even want anarch-capitalists don't even want a government military. They want it should be provided privately. So when you say absolutist, I'm saying along that line of libertarian, Haskell. When you say absolutist, I'm looking at anarch-capitalists, and he ain't that. That's
right. And I posted a quote what he said. He got lectures talking about rules within the game. Like that was one of the main talking points he made. Like, yeah, y'all may think he may be extreme, but like he got quotes like says so long as it stays within the rules of the game, which is to say in open and free competition without deception or fraud. Right. So like when y'all was breaking it down, how like he's supporting motherfuckers being deceived. He don't care if motherfuckers getting away with fraud. I'm just like, we gotta reel it in a little bit.
When it comes to his what he believes economically, right? I'm not saying he believes in no government as a whole. He absolutely believes it. He just doesn't want the government to impede on the private rights and liberties of American citizens, right? As a matter of fact,
I just don't the other shit attached to it.
He's like, agreeing with you, Fed. He's talking more to Haskell.
Yeah, most libertarians today actually are completely fine with the American government impeding on the rights and liberties of other people, right? Just not American citizens.
Yeah.
Right. So, but when we're talking in the conversation about corporations and stuff, he absolutely is fine with corporations being able to have the same freedoms that individuals have because they see corporations as individuals, which they are. So these corporations should have the same freedoms from the government impeding and treating on them.
Yeah. I mean, he's more of rather than like being a deontologist, he's more like a consequentialist where like even when he discusses welfare, An anarch-capitalist says no welfare, period, under any circumstance.
Exactly.
Friedman more says this particular program we have is not effective and it's not working. Maybe we should try this. And it would still, consequentially, it would help the poor, just not this shit that they're doing. He's not against helping people in regards to FEMA. He's just against how FEMA is doing it. And that FEMA oversteps, and that it's how FEMA operates. It operates. Yes, I agree, Haskell. People, people's behaviors define a lot of the shit we complain about. We don't look at the people's behaviors; we just blame the program. But the way FEMA is set up and how they do business is literally advantageous for you to take it. Like it's set up for you to do it. It's like a layup. So
now, I will say this though, Brass.
Yeah.
Anarch-capitalists, another thing they believe in is that, the market should actually be the governing body, right? To a degree. Like there is no governing body, but like that's because the market, those kind of people are the people that are all for lobbying being the driving force in the decision making going on in Washington. Right? Like they actually think there should be more of that. Because they actually want capital to be what is dictating what the fuck is going on in the country. So I don't know his position on this.
I don't get that as just from what I know about anarch-capitalists, they're not for that. Maybe not in the way that you're saying it. I don't think that they're for lobbying. I think that they would. I mean, just based off who they are, I don't know. You have to show me what you're reading or something.
So when I know y'all are gay. Y'all ever play BioShock?
No.
Any of y'all?
I know of it, but I never played it.
That game is a perfect example of anarch-capitalism, right? Like the governing body is the corporations and the businesses that are telling the people what to do in that society. There is no government. There is no governing body. It's your Bill Gates. It's your Steve Jobs. They're the ones that is pretty much in control, right? And that's where I'm saying, like, I'm not saying lobbying is exactly that, but it's stepping toward that to where money is what's making the decisions within the governing body.
Okay. And once again, I get thrust into this position of and this was kind of I'm not defending Milton Friedman or Richard Wolff or any of those economists, and I know they influence policy. It's just when you get too hyperbolic and you get too extreme,
right? Exactly.
It kind of like it has to be kind of reeled in, and that's kind of all I'm doing. Just kind of like some of what you're saying is correct, but the hyperbole is making it like these are just like. That's where I would argue back based off what I've read and what I know in my own experience. So I'm not in here defending Milton Friedman like he's a saint, but y'all are vilifying him like he's Satan, and I agree with that.
He would cook y'all niggas in a debate. Nobody on this.
They wouldn't be able to debate him. He'd take them.
He would because I agree with that. I agree with that. His skill to explain his point would be far better than my skill to disprove it.
It wouldn't be better than mine.
No, but let me just finish.
I can't articulate.
Corey, let me finish.
Articulate what he's saying and put it in words where the audience would understand it, and then articulate what I'm saying.
I will pay to see that in the alternate universe.
Meanwhile, he's doing all of this hemming and hawing and not being clear or matter of fact about what the fuck he said.
Yeah. No, Corey, let me finish. Corey, let me finish, please.
And have a different opinion on what he's saying.
Yeah, Corey, let me finish before. But the thing about Milton Friedman and what I'm saying,
one of y'all got a humble out.
Everybody got
surgical.
One of y'all got a humble out.
Surgical.
Yeah, one of y'all.
I'm surgical too. Absolutely. I'm surgical too. Absolutely. The thing is, I'm not vague though. You see what I'm saying? So our audience wouldn't take kindly to a to a person who's speaking vaguely compared to a person who's speaking very matter of fact. See what I'm saying? So again, Milton Friedman can hem and haw and use all of these economic words, but I can break down exactly what he's saying, just like I do in this Discord, right? I take all of them pieces of legislation and I bring it to the front porch so you niggas can understand. But most of the time, you niggas don't understand until it's too late, till it already happened to y'all, right? But see, what I be on is preempting those talking points that people like those libertarians, Milton Friedman, and all these wild ass niggas bring to y'all, right? Because I was prepped for that.
I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced.
Can I
You don't have to be.
finish that?
I'm not saying my point wasn't to convince you. My point is you may think highly of Milton Friedman, but I think highly of myself.
No, I'm just saying like it's levels to it. It's like a G League player saying they can play Braun 1-on-1.
Yeah, let me just finish what I'm saying. I might not be able to outword him, like something that wasn't able to outword Jabari. But what I would do if I was in the situation, if I was in that situation, I would call him out on every bullshit. Because Milton Friedman, regardless of what Brass just says, is an evil fucking human being. And we cannot act as evil fucking human being like that fucker who died wasn't an evil fucking human being. We cannot act as if evil fucking human beings are not evil fucking human beings. We cannot say, oh, you're in this Discord and I'm not going as far as to call an evil fucking human being, a racist, and a manipulator, an evil fucking human being. And that's what he was. When evil fucking human being dies or when they're alive, we should be able to call them on for what they are. Not to tiptoe around the tulips. And not to feel bad that I called him an evil fucking human being. That, we're going over the edge. No, we're not going over the edge. If you're reading policies and what he's trying to inclinate, that fucker was an evil fucking human being.
And that's what I'm saying. I'm not even opposed to no man is above critique. I'm just saying, if you were to talk to Freeman and if you were to make certain assumptions and generalize, he gonna cook you. That's all I'm saying. You have to be like, you have to be on point.
Does that make him less of an evil fucking human being? Does that make him less?
That's what I'm saying. Evil and all of that is
So Fetty, you just posted a quote from him.
Yeah.
Everyone listened to this quote Fetty posted. And I just want to know.
Hold on, let me see.
It's the same. It's literally the same quote.
I like when he gets into this bag. What Fetty post?
Let me read the quote.
I read out the quote.
Yeah, no, I want to read it loud and clear for everyone because maybe people ain't hear you. I want to know if everyone feels comfortable with this statement. Okay, so he says there is one and only one social responsibility of business: to use its resources and engage in activities designed to increase its profits so long as it stays within the rules of the game, which is to say, engages in open and free competition without deception or fraud, period. Is that a moral statement to everyone who heard it?
No, we're not. It's not moral though. It's business. Right, you trying to see what you're doing, and true as that was slick as hell. He literally made a completely business statement, and you said, "Is it moral?" That don't match.
Are we comfortable?
But what
Are we
doing
comfortable
now,
with the statement?
No, but Brass just did is separate business from morality. But how can a business exist in a society and have no morals?
So what social responsibility?
Let me finish. If we define businesses as individual, if we give them the rights of an individual, are you saying that an immoral individual should be appreciated, welcome, and celebrated in a society? Because if a business is an individual, you can't have it both ways. Because morality shows how you are accepted and treated in society. So if you're saying that a business has no right to be moral, although it's an individual, you cannot have it both ways. You cannot say business
He literally said that with deception, devoid of deception or fraud. He gave y'all what y'all wanted.
Yeah, here's my statement. Here's my statement, right? So where I would go,
I don't think that's why I said he wouldn't beat me in a debate, Fetty, because most of the people who would attend a debate like that will understand what he means when he says devoid of deception and fraud, right? Because obviously you don't understand what he means.
No. It's earlier attaching. It's the people who going against I don't know who doing that soundboard, but it's the niggas who going against Milton Freeman attaching things that's not true on him, thinking that this motherfucker the next.
No, I'm talking about what he said right there. I'm talking about the last sentence in the paragraph that was read.
It's not necessarily talking about the libertarian framework of how they want certain benefits, because like you said, if you're a libertarian, you kind of want the most limited intervention possible. That's what truth is working down. I'm saying the way y'all talking about them is not, just give more context when you talk about them, because if you don't, you already lost.
Yeah. So again, I want to talk about that last sentence where he talked about without fraud or staying within the rules without doing fraud, right? So that's always a talking point, especially by these neoliberals these days and libertarians and the conservative right? When they talk about within the rules, right? Meaning that changing the rules is within the rules, right? So when you they saying like those regulations that get rolled back, that's not fraud or breaking the rules. Right? That's staying within the rules. Right? But see, those talking points, the thing is, a lot of these talking points have not changed since the Reagan era. A lot of those terms that they use, the dog whistles that they use, have not changed since the Reagan era. And then they'll quit using them for a minute and then bring them back to 2026 and assume that the constituency or the population forgot about what those terms actually meant in practice, right? How they practice those things that they talk about. Right? See, that's the thing. It's fine that he can word shit like that, right? But when a nigga like me come along and put it in its proper context, right, and show niggas what they really been talking about since the Reagan era, because that's most of the points that Milton Friedman bring out. Right, most of the points and the practices that he advocate for is mostly Reaganomics, shit that we done seen already, talking points that we done heard already. Right, we heard about the welfare queens and the people frauding the insurance companies and this and that and the other. Right, we done heard about that. Right, but again, the percentage, look at the percentage, just like what they did with y'all with the trannies and shit, right? Look at the percentage of fraud that happens with FEMA, right? No, because they fuck y'all with the percentages. They make a anthill out of a mountain, right?
I don't know what all this virtual signaling come from with
I gave the example because out of 500,000 athletes, student athletes, 500,000 student athletes, it's less than 10 who even identify as trans. So again, they told y'all that, yeah, we fighting for women's rights and we fighting for the equality in school sports, right? But they didn't tell y'all that, no, only thing we doing is discriminating against the 10 motherfuckers who think most of them don't want to be, most of them ain't faggots trying to play football.
I thought they dealt with bathrooms and shit like that too.
The overwhelming majority of them is tough ass girls trying to be on a wrestling team. You see what I'm saying? The overwhelming majority of the 10 people, literally, it's not even hyperbole. I know most of the shit that y'all hear me say, y'all think it's hyperbole.
I thought it was more so dealing with like bathrooms.
You wanted to bring up you wanted, instead of allowing me to breeze past the tranny point, You wanted
No,
to
you said
like that.
y'all. You said y'all. I'm like, why you hurt you? So like, what? You keep
Instead of
saying,
you letting me
I
breeze
was
past
right.
that,
Bro,
you wanted to highlight.
Again. I'm trying to have a
Did you
conversation.
not? Did you not?
Can I
Did you
finish?
not allow me?
You about to?
Did you
Okay,
just
you've
not
been
allow
talking.
me to breeze
We're
past that
having a
and continue on
back
with
and
my
forth.
example?
The reason
Did
why
you
I said
stop
that,
me and then you wanted me to highlight that?
You about no? It's because you keep saying y'all. They got y'all. That's what I was.
Listen, if you're not the hit fucking dog, don't
Why you getting so up? Why you getting so upset?
I'm not. You keep telling me I'm saying you. But I'm saying if you're not the hit fucking dog,
I was trying to get clarity. I wasn't hollering. I'm trying to get clarity. I'm like, what is the message that you giving? Who is it applying to in here? You saying y'all?
As soon as I was going on with my example and my point, you paused me and said, "Oh, you're making it about trannies."
No,
and then
I didn't. No,
I clarified
it
myself,
was broader. God, man. All right, bro, you about to get
Corey, you mind I step in?
uh-huh.
You mind I step in, or you wanna?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah. And stay off mute. I want to see where you land on this, if you don't mind, if you can. So I understand where you're coming from with when you say the deception and this, that, and the other, and playing within the rules. Like I get that point that the rules in and of themselves are the things that should be changed. So if you're just staying in if you're playing within the rules, but it's a bad rule, then what are you actually doing that's ethical per se? So
or if you're buying the bad rules, right? So the rules ain't originally bad, but then they come and buy off our representatives, and then the rules get bad. So again, when you're doing that, you're saying it's not deceptive and fraudulent. Fine. When you read the book, the textbook, a textbook wrong or fraudulent? No, you ain't doing that. But when we look at it, when we quit playing, when we stop playing with each other, then we recognize the wrongdoing and the ill-gotten gains, right?
Right. So
okay.
For example, there were child labor laws that used to be legal, and if you played within them rules, you could say that you were in the right. But the shit don't make sense. The rule don't make sense. Pollution was legal before, right? Mm-hmm. So if you threw all your shit in the river, you say you playing within the rules is not ethical. But here's my question, right? Not my question. This is my statement, and this is the stance I take when it comes to this. The laws change through democracy. So I get that they change through lobbying.
I don't know. I just talked about how they pay for our representatives, but go ahead. I get what you're saying.
Right.
Go ahead.
But I also understand that there's an issue even with them rules, the lobbying, the amount of money spent, the age of these people, how you can pay these people. So what I would call for is more of, rather than trying to, a shareholder and a stakeholder is two different things. Friedman's theory is more of a shareholder theory. It's simply a theory of the corporation's obligation is to their shareholders. I keep telling y'all to go back and watch this old movie called The Corporation. It shows you, it's the cleanest way I've ever seen somebody explain how corporations, once they became human, by law, the corporation is essentially a human, that's kind of the time when the corporations changed. This is before Reagan and all of that. So
look up the term fiduciary responsibility. That'll sum it up all right there. You go. That'll sum it up for you.
So now it's actually against the law, and you could be removed if what you do is not for the benefit of a shareholder. What the reverse of that is, or going further away from that, is called a stakeholder theory. So now a stakeholder theory is different, where you would say not only does a corporation have obligations to its shareholders, they have, and even though the law doesn't require it, they have a responsibility to any groups that are affected by its actions. So Friedman is on the shareholder side, and on the shareholder side, their theory is the government, if I'm playing in these laws and I'm playing within these rules, then if the rules are bad, it's the responsibility of the government to change the rules. A stakeholder would say the rules are bad, and until those rules change, even though that's within the rules, we're not going to do that. So you have two different points of view. My issue with Friedman in this case is, yes, they will play within the rules. My issue with the shareholder theory, not Friedman. My issue with the shareholder theory is always this. But if you didn't lobby to get these rules and then also make sure that these rules stay, and you know that they're affecting the environment or they're affecting employees, then you're not really playing within the rules. You're setting the rules to the game. Similar to how in spades, where some people say there's a big joker and a little joker, and then you know what? There's the deuce of spades because I got the deuce of spades. So now that's the third highest card, if that makes sense. So I get the different things, but once again, going back, and I'm gonna land my plane right here. But once we go, it's easier to explain exactly what it is rather than all of the extremism, the evil, the hyperbole, because people won't even understand that even in a quote like that, this is what he said, and it sounds great. And I agree with the quote, but I agree with the quote only if those rules are actually being passed by a government or an agency that's not bought and paid for. Because the rules should change as society goes along through time, but these rules, you still got the Schumers.
Why are you afraid to call evil men evil, brass? Why are you afraid to call evil men evil?
I'm not afraid.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are, because we're looking at an evil man now with evil thoughts. No, it's a question. I'm not finished asking you.
It won't even
Because
take me long.
Guess what? You're creeping around the tulips, and you're saying that, an organization is an individual. Then you talk about morality.
That's a fact. It's not creeping.
And then yes, that's a fact, right? And then you talk about morals. Say an organization not necessarily supposed to have morals, but yes, it would exact.
I'm going to correct you about the tulips. You don't creep around the tulips. You tiptoe around the tulips. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, gotcha.
Tiptoeing around the tulips and coming here acting like you're not tiptoeing. Don't act like you're not tiptoeing, man. We see you tiptoeing. Don't explain. Don't try to deceive my lying ears and eyes. You're tiptoeing, brass. And everybody in here
what I was wrong.
He gave a non-biased.
I just letting you know that we see you tiptoeing, brass. We see you. You don't have to explain.
Don't fall for it, bro. Don't fall for it.
So if I misexplain stakeholder and shareholder theory, then correct me where I'm wrong. But the reason why I'm explaining it this way is that we have a listening audience. This isn't private. We have a listening audience. It's better to explain exactly what it is than just saying he's evil. Or just saying, I know what he's saying, but y'all don't know what he's
back to slavery.
So that's, or the return to slavery.
Absolutely. I think some clarity is, I agree with Brass. Like, clarity is always a good thing, right? You can start out, do like I do. Yeah, I hate to use myself as an example because I'm not the best example in the world, right? But what I do is I start out hyperbolic, but then and within my explanation, I'll reel that back. You know what I'm saying? So,
but lately we've never gotten one.
But for clarity,
go ahead.
We're focusing on the last part of the statement. When in the beginning he makes a claim that the one, not the one of few, but the one social responsibility of a business is to make a profit in the ways that he said at the end are responsible, right? But he's pretty much insinuating that the only social responsibility of a business is to make a profit. And
that's not an insinuation. That's shareholder theory.
Yeah, but that's
it is against the law. Hold on, Truist. You can be fired at a corporation if they find out and can prove to the other shareholders that you, as the chairman of the board or whatever, if you did something against the benefit of these shareholders and their dividend and their profit that was within the rules, right? It wasn't illegal, but you chose you acting as a stakeholder, but you're being a shareholder. What he's saying, their only responsibility is to making sure that share price goes up within the rules.
But a business is not just stakeholders. A business is also the people that are working on the floor of that business.
There has
to be a social responsibility.
Under shareholder theory, it doesn't.
Yeah, but we don't have the shareholder theory ain't the end all be all. But we're talking about
that's what he's talking about, is what I'm saying.
No, but he doesn't mention shareholder theory one time in this book.
But listen, what I'm saying is, whether he mentioned it or not, go look up Friedman. That's his thing. Like, if you could almost say Friedman's theory or shareholders theory. It's the same. What he believes is a corporation's sole job is to raise the share price, and then you go to the end in open and free competition without deception and fraud.
That's fine.
Is to raise the share price.
That's fine. That's his theory. But that theory isn't objective. That's a subjective theory. I don't have to agree with his theory.
I'm not telling you to agree.
So what I'm saying is, theory suggests that the only social responsibility of a business is to make a profit. And I feel like businesses have social responsibilities to the people it employs as well, by showing them respect and making sure the people on the floors of it, and not just the stakeholders, are being handled properly. I don't think the only social responsibility of a business to make a profit. That's ridiculous.
No, stay right there. My point is not to tell you what to believe. My point is, under shareholder theory, it's the opposite of what you're saying. I'm just saying, under stakeholder theory. I'm not saying.
Quite honestly, fuck his theory. I don't care about his theory.
Hey, that's fine. But I'm gonna tell you this.
I think it's stupid.
That's fine. But when y'all this is where we run into this brick wall. Y'all are so passionate about corporations, what they're doing, how they're operating, and all this, that, and the other. And don't take this as a shot.
Yeah.
But y'all, how much? This is a question. How much vetting of corporations that y'all use every day? How much vetting do y'all do to see if the corporations that y'all deal with follow shareholder theory or not? Like if you knew a corporation,
and I'm sure they do. I'm sure they follow. I'm sure most of the ones that I've either worked for, or conduct business with, or buy things from, I'm sure most of them follow that theory.
So you've just accepted that that's just like a part of life. Like,
yeah, that's why I have a problem with how business is typically conducted, because I do believe they adhere to theories such as that.
But it doesn't bother you enough to not. You say fuck the theory, but it doesn't bother you enough to not do business or be a consumer of a company that supports the theory.
To be quite frank with you, living where I've lived most of my life. Yeah. To be truest with you, where I've lived most of my life, I didn't really have much of a choice in order to get access to the resources I need to maintain a living.
Okay. I ain't got no argument with that.
Not only that, I don't believe it's the responsibility of consumers and working class people to vet those corporations. I think we have branches of government that the taxpayers that we pay into as taxpayers, that's been the funds have actually been redirected to the military. But as far as the CFPB, right, mm-hmm. that's a branch of government that actually does that for us. It actually has requirements that that like the Surgeon General that Surgeon General sticker that's put on the cigarettes. You know what I'm saying? Those regulatory and informative labels, right, are put in place by government branches like the CFPB, right? And so that's where we should be informed. We should have regulatory systems within our government, right, like the CFPB, that requires us to be fully informed on not only what it takes to make the I guess in this situation we would say the proverbial sausage, right? What would make how we make the proverbial sausage, right? What goes into it, but also the practices, right? Is it child labor, right? Do they have they been accused of wage theft? All of these different things, these different pieces of information that a consumer and a working class person wouldn't necessarily even have the tools or ability to even get to the information, let alone the time. So like that's why I always bring up branches like the CFPB, because those are the branches that the taxpayers actually pay for, right? That should be doing that for us.
And I agree that you would lean on those branches, Corey. It just be when I having these conversations, it's like I understand the passion and the anger. It just don't accept it well when it gets to the point where it's like for example, there was a time where like Jordans had these serious labor concerns. Where they were talking about how it was made and child labor, all this other shit. But it bothered the whole world, but Jordan was still the #1 selling shoe. So I'm just saying, even though it's not a consumer's responsibility to vet it, I do believe we still consumers, if we're bringing moral and ethics into business and trying to put it onto the corporations, if the demand for something is clearly problematic and advertised and publicized, then we know that there's some issues there. If the demand is still high, you can blame the corporation for feeding the demand, but the consumer would have some responsibility of it. It's fun, like when we had these conversations about
to order something from Amazon Prime right now, talking that shit about.
When we had these conversations about environment, Corey, it'd be funny as hell when I see like every now and then across my Instagram, because of my algorithm, it doesn't happen as much, but I get a lot of free range stuff. But then I always get like the shit with like the person with the 1,000,000 chickens in the pen and showing how bad they're treating them and this, that, and the other. And I get it, right? But then I go back and I also remember like, it's also partly our issue as to why that is too. Because shit, nigga, it's a chicken store on every, like, you want the shit fast. You want the Popeyes and the like when everybody, the Popeyes chicken sandwich, the whole fucking world went crazy over that shit. But it seems like in that moment they forgot about them chickens and that pen and all of that shit. So it's just, I always kind of go more towards the government has a responsibility, they should do their job. A corporation has a responsibility, it should do its job. But us as consumers, we have a responsibility, and I think we can affect that. I think we definitely can affect that. Whether we have people doing the work for us or not, we know what's problematic and what isn't. Niggas hate Elon Musk, but they definitely got X accounts. They definitely
nigga Amazon, nigga cart full.
Yeah. So, that's just where I'm at. But I'm trying to do the moral thing.
But I mean, I know it's hard to get away from the whole.
Why that? Like, I don't understand that talking point though, right? I don't understand like, oh, your Amazon cart is full, but you against the data centers or whatever the fuck the point is. I don't know what that point is, right?
The fight ain't that. You know what I mean? Is the fight being for it. Like, and I feel you. I ain't even.
The thing is, like,
Damn.
I don't. So it doesn't have to be a dichotomy. The world don't even work like that. Human beings don't work in a this or that manner. Nothing in your entire life ever in the fucking universe's history worked as a this or as a fucking that. Right? Not even the first super subatomic particles act like that. Right? Super subatomic particles don't even really understand whether they exist or not, right? They popping in and
you just lost me, nigga. You just
yeah,
lost me.
because
I don't need subatomic particles
to
to know. You gotta admit this is kind of funny. If you complain about Jeff Bezos every day in the Discord, you order Amazon. That's funny. It's funny. There's no way around it. There's no way around it.
So nobody again, we can point out the realities of the predatory way that the system has been rigged against the consumers and the working class, right? That don't mean we don't need to go out and buy a fucking car. Like that, I don't understand the point. I don't understand the point of that.
Hyperbole. Who said that?
So since I use Amazon, I shouldn't talk about them dumping toxic chemicals in the drink.
It is a little contradiction, though. It is. Just when it comes to Amazon and like rich build, like
since I work for Amazon, I shouldn't be concerned about the environmental effects.
See again, you doing the extreme thing again. Like stick to what I'm saying.
I'm asking the question because that's what you
obviously not, bro. Like why you like? Come on, bro. You ain't gotta play that game with me, bro.
That was the example that you gave, though.
Oh my god, bro. All right, bro. Fucked up the joke, bro. But it is a contradiction. It is a contradiction as it pertains to complaining about.
Right? I joke a lot, but sometimes
it's like a two-way street. Like there is consumer responsibility as well. That's why I brought up
consumer responsibility.
But what's the problem? What's the problem then?
There should be government regulations. Again, there is consumer responsibility. Can we start there? There is consumer responsibility. You as a consumer should be a well-informed consumer. But how do you become a well-informed consumer? Can I ask that?
Reading terms and conditions. I was talking about that earlier.
Right. No. Terms and conditions are very vague. So reading the fine print on the terms and
you better inform than if you don't
make you a responsible consumer. It makes you that is a responsible thing, but that in itself doesn't make you.
I didn't say within itself. I just gave an example. I didn't say why you keep changing my. I never said that, bro. I just gave an example. I didn't say
you said that in itself. You gave an example, fine. But what I'm saying is. I'm talking about a well-informed, not a motherfucker who read the terms and conditions, because it ain't the terms and conditions for everything you purchase.
It's bigger than that. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, it's bigger than that. I got
you. Realize that most of the things, the overwhelming vast majority of the things that you purchase don't come with terms and conditions. Are you with that? Are you with me so far? When you go to the grocery store, how much terms and conditions do they fucking float out on the door before you walk in that motherfucker? Right? Do you check a box before you walk in the fucking grocery store? No, you don't. Right? When you go to fucking Best Buy, do you check a fucking box before you buy your TV? No, you fucking don't. Right? So how do a person become well informed, right? By a government regulatory system that requires information on the consumer's goods, on the goods that you're consuming. Again, like those things, for example, the Surgeon General sticker on the fucking cigarettes, right? That's how you become a well-informed consumer, right? Because the government has regulations that requires information to be placed in a fashion where the average consumer can understand and has access to.
Corey,
right? When you just like the regulatory thing that legislation that was put out by Zoran Mamdani, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can read the fine print, right? But when they make you jump through hoops, when they make you have to go to the website, then find the 1-800 number, then wait 3 hours for somebody to call you for somebody to answer the phone, and then the phone call dropped 6 times because the motherfucker is actually in India, right? Now that is a little bit different, right? You see what I'm saying? So again, I've read the terms and conditions, right? I know that you're gonna charge me after this 7-day trial, but when you make me have to jump through hoops when it's not regulations, you didn't put in the terms and conditions that I was gonna have to jump through hoops to get the motherfucker canceled, right? So again, there is consumer responsibility, but again, we pay for a government. We pay for a government, and we pay into a regulatory system like the CFPB to be able to make sure that the public is well informed about the goods they're consuming.
I would agree that the government has a larger capacity to investigate these things, and you would remove a lot of responsibility. It's just, Corey, what you're getting right now, just so you know, this ain't really targeted at you. It's just, it's mainly at the conversations we've been having a lot lately. All I'm saying is this, right? And I'm tiptoeing through the tulips or some shit. My thing is, tiptoeing through the tulips, creeping. Because creeping sound a little crazy. I appreciate you corrected that. Right. But it's just in here, it's the vilification that be driving me crazy. Because it's like, even in this scenario, the corporations, the mistake is assigning the responsibility to only one party. So in this conversation we having, a corporation chooses its methods, they choose their suppliers, and I agree with you, we pay taxes to a government that's supposed to set fair rule, or set just rules, and punish violations. But then you have to add in the consumer, because we have the ability to reward or penalize these same companies through our behavior. So even though it's limited by the information, and it's also limited by price, you might not want to go to Walmart, but shit, it's the cheapest, and you getting screwed on this on the back end pause with your money. So I get that part. I get all of that.
Victim blaming, a lot of victim blaming happening here. I hear victim blaming, but go ahead. I was listening to on YouTube. That's a lot of victim blaming. Continue creeping, because you're not fucking tiptoeing now. You're creeping, not hiding behind the tulips. You're not tiptoeing.
He picked his
Of
pace
course,
up.
you're tiptoeing. And creeping and hiding. And non-victim shaming.
Him picked his pace up.
Yeah, and creeping and hiding behind the tulips. And no victim shaming. The consumer, oh Lord. The consumer should have choice. The choice. Where's the choice? Where's the choice in the food desert in the community where there's only family dollars? Where's that choice? But continue creeping, because I'm not saying that you're tiptoeing. I'm calling what you're doing. You're creeping and hiding and sniping. Now go ahead. I'm listening to you. I'm still on YouTube listening. And that what you just said was victim shaming 101. I just waiting for you to say the word consumer. And I say yes. Evil people are evil.
Why we got the short, why the consumers wearing them short skirts, huh?
Yes.
Of course, I want to.
First off, let's be clear. I want to be clear on something. Ain't nobody ever in their right mind ever gonna cut me off and then say, "Go ahead." That's one. Two.
So what? You special? You do it to me, so you special. You can do it and nobody can do it to you. That make you fucking special? I play by the rules you generate. All the time I tell you, I hear you, and when my time comes, I'm going to do it. So all of a fucking sudden now, nobody can cut you off and say, go ahead, and you do it all the fucking while? What makes you so special? What, you have 3 hands? All of a sudden now you have 2 head, brass? You have 4 foot? What makes you fucking special that you can do the shit, and when it turns back on you, all of a sudden, let me know what makes you fucking special. Because I tell you all the while, I play by the rules that are given to me. And all the while you do it as a brass, remember, you fucking did it first. So no, don't fucking tell me that nobody can tell you go ahead. And you do that fuck all the while. So continue.
Bumbucker!
Bullshit, that man. Bullshit. I play by the rules. Anybody who know me know that when I give it to anybody, I listen to how people play. I say, okay, those are the rules that we're playing by. Let's play by your fucking rules. Don't establish rules that say only apply to you. No, that sounds like a fucking capitalist. Keep him in the tulips.
You had a good weekend?
Hmm.
Logic, you do anything interesting, bro?
What'd you say?
I said, you do anything interesting this weekend?
Yeah, I did actually. It's cool.
Hey, you know what I want to do, man? I never was successful at, bro. I want to fish, man. Like
You
I
should talk to
never.
DQ about that.
DQ, yeah, I
DQ
never.
got a great book. Hey, let me do the capitalism thing. DQ has a great book on Amazon. He has a great book on Amazon about fishing. So you should
DQ got a
definitely
book?
go out and buy that book. See how capitalism works? There's a person that wants to get into fishing, and DQ has a comprehensive book on fishing. Go buy the book, right? And then you know you actually know DQ. Send it to him, get it signed. Might be worth something some more one day. But once again, when y'all niggas cut me off and say now you can talk, that's too much like I'm allowing you or I'll let you. And I believe I am special. I ain't gonna lie to you. The funny thing is, I was kind of stuck because I was about to say the words, no, I'm not special. And then I felt my mother from just slapping the shit out of me and saying, who the fuck are you to say you not? I am fucking special. I would hope that y'all motherfuckers are special too. Some people take offense to shit when niggas say, I'm gonna allow you to talk. Maybe I'm the only person in here that takes that personal. But I do. But it is what it is.
Okay,
But
well, you serious about the book?
Yeah, it's a book. I'm gonna put it in the chat for the show. I'm gonna put it in the chat. You'll be able to buy the link, buy it off the link. But that's capitalism at its finest. But here's the second thing, right? So in these conversations, just so we clear, we can call it whatever we want to call it. But a lot of times in these conversations, we find one person, vilify that one person, and remove all the responsibility from everybody else. And living in America, I know I'm an arrogant American, right? So I know the same people, you know, that you may complain about this, that, and the other, but I mean, shit, in my opinion, I don't know how much complaining even me I'd be having the right to do looking at my life, right? I don't know if that's being humble, grateful, or arrogant. It falls under one of them three. So my point in all of this is, in any conversation we're having about this, there's just multiple actors that share responsibility. I even stated that the government, they may have more capacity to investigate. They may have more of an ability to investigate. So I will put a lot more of the responsibility on them, but it's not just on them. The same people that complain about all of these things are the same people that if they had to pay $10 for properly sourced and raised chicken versus $3 for some shit with chickens crammed all in the motherfucker, they're gonna pay the $3. Now, even in that responsibility and the choice they make, there's 7 responsibilities with that. Because they should be getting paid a fair living wage and this, that, and the thing. I get all of that shit. But to place the world's ills on one person, like Milton Friedman, bro, I've heard Milton Friedman's gonna put us in slavery. I've heard Milton Friedman is the damn near the reason for the end of the fucking world, and y'all don't want clarity, but clarity will at least give you some ability to attack and assign the fault to the correct person or the correct thing or the correct system. But when we keep saying it's this one guy, I've been very consistent in this. A month ago, it was Republic. Hold on. Correct me if I'm wrong. Less than 2 months ago, Republicans were the reason for all the ills in the fucking world. Now we done spent the last 2 months saying it's the corporate Democrats. Now we done spent the last 4 weeks saying it's the liberals. Now we on the socialists. Like this is just having some clarity on how all this shit works. If that's victim shaming, I'm gonna continue to do it because it doesn't leave. At least Corey, when he starts at his hyperbole, he ends with some kind of explanation. So when you go do the research, you have the ability to go and actually look for the right thing rather than going into your shit. Is Milton Friedman the devil? Like, what the fuck? Your ChatGPT should laugh at you. But that's, that's that. But just know, so now when we've set the parameters, when you tell me I'm allowed to speak, you ain't my father, you ain't my parents, there's a few people on the planet that can tell me when I'm allowed to speak and when I'm not. Ain't nobody in here fall under them circumstances. Not one of you. So
you going with that, I believe he's told you to continue, right? And are you viewing continue as him giving you permission?
No. If you call me a half a bitch, if you say, Brass, you half a bitch, fake ass victim shaming nigga, and then say, now you continue with what you were saying. Who the think you talking to?
I got you.
Like, that ain't never gonna work with me. Never. That'll never work, bro. Never. Not. I control myself to not mute niggas. I don't mute niggas no more. I just let you speak and listen. But you're not gonna motherfucking do all of that and then be like, you know what? Now that we've agreed, now that I've said you a bitch and everything but a child of God, now you can go ahead and continue doing what get the fuck out of here.
Well, I'm glad I missed that.
It seems like Milton is the Barry Latzer. It just seems like he's the Barry Latzer of this month. I mean, we do this all
the time. We be acting like last week we was feeling fine. Bro, do you know on Friday, the same way we talking about Milton Friedman, niggas in here was talking about Barack Obama the same fucking way. I'm supposed to sit here and be like, yeah, he's the new devil of the week. Now it's Friedman. Like, come on, bro. Niggas just hate everybody. Everybody is the reason for all the fucking ills. But if not me say the fact that you don't want a Popeyes on East Street and a Popeyes on West Street and a Popeyes on South Street, when you are the guy that comes out and says, but what about the chickens? I don't want to listen to you. When you talking about child labor and got 70 Jordans in your fucking closet, I don't want to listen to you about it. Maybe I'll listen to Corey about it with them beautiful shoes that just came today. Appreciate you, Corey.
The shoes promote is union made.
I know it wasn't child labor and the quality of these motherfuckers. I know it wasn't. I don't even think unless the small hands for the stitching.
No, that's a Goodyear. That's a Goodyear machine. That's stitched.
I'm glad you put me on to him. But what I'm saying is that's the main point. With Fetty was being glib about the Amazon thing, right? But his overall point is, and that's what I was trying to get at with Truist. The most passionate people in here about, like, I hear people say shit like, they ain't shit, and the politicians, they ain't shit. And then I'd be like, yo, but did you vote? Hell no. Man, shut up, bro. Like, I don't be wanting to hear it past that. I want to at least hear somebody, Corey, who when they say we are 40 and this, that, and the third, I can actually see that somewhere in their life. That's why, like, me and Thunder, we've been into it, over it, all over the place. Pause. But because I know I stalled Thunder out a lot of times when niggas in here with the coon shit and all of the racial shit, this that, and the other. I know in his real life though, outside of his opinions, his views, and what he's saying here, in his real life, I know what he does for black people. So sometimes I'll leave rather than cuss thunder out off some shit he say. You know what I mean? But it's because I know. So it's like, you know, you gotta, it's a give and take. And I be thinking like we not being real. Y'all trying to be real, but we not being necessarily real. You'll talk about the corporations all day long, but got, you know, I don't know. That's my soapbox. I'm done. Y'all go
You got
ahead.
stock at Amazon, but
A lot of the times too, though, I think sometimes when we're talking, we kind of forget when we get into the conversation and then a lot of times, like if we get some pushback, I think we forget that we just trying to be informative, right? You know, sometimes I think we just trying to put some information out there. So I just wanted to remind ourselves of that. Like a lot of these conversations is all we trying to do is bring awareness to a group of people who ain't savvy on any of the shit that we be talking about as far as you know, like nowadays, like people kind of understand that, you know, a little bit about price gouging and shit like that. Some of the more obvious things in the predatory, especially since 2008, people are more aware of the predatory bank practices by some of these bankers. But all in all, I don't think you know, the ins and outs, or even they may be aware that there's predatory practices in the bank, right? But they don't really understand how that actually works or what that actually looks like. So sometimes I think we just maybe we do need to dial back a little bit of the hyperbole. But again, sometimes the hyperbole is what gets the attention of
no, I
some of the
love that.
people. So
Yeah, I'm not
it's
mad at
all
that,
good.
but it's a whole panel, and some motherfuckers be dead ass serious. It ain't.
Do the hyperbole, but at some point explain. That's all I'm saying. Do all the hyperbole in the world to get the attention. The title says, "Are we slaves technically in 2026?" And Reggie won that debate 3-0. I get that's hyperbole,
Yeah.
right? That's just to fucking. But now we actually talking, you know, having the kind. But if I put a staunch discussion on Milton Friedman, like niggas would be like, "You the fucking Milton Friedman." Right. So, but now we actually getting into the weeds, right? And having a real conversation. A real conversation is not Milton Friedman, it's the devil. That's not even a real
Yeah, we
conversation.
don't need Milton Friedman to talk about the overall broader point. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Shareholders, like that's why I keep pointing back to that movie. I wish it was licensed where I could watch it on YouTube. That movie, when you see how far corporations are actually human and the lobbying and what was done to make them human and what the purpose and the reason for it was, you would have your issues wouldn't start at Reagan and Clinton and like this. You would go back to like the formation of the corporations. That would piss you off way more than any. That's where before that, I mean, I learned it before that, but that is a clear explanation of shareholder and stakeholder. So, you know. But what y'all got? What y'all got? Y'all got something else? Are we still slaves technically in 2026? What Logic got?
Slaves to
I
what?
mean, I've been here. I've been enjoying it. You know what I'm saying? It's been kind of hard to get a word in edgewise, but I've been enjoying it. I got about 20 minutes too before I got an appointment I gotta crack.
You know, get your shit off and then we'll argue over
it. But yeah, so the Milton Friedman conversation, right, is really on how he was brought up, right? he was brought up as somebody who had at least a viable explanation or reason for like I get it, like to reject welfare, right? It was brought up in a way where, you know, some of the stuff that he's trying to say is actually humane. Because I was talking about, we started talking about how he wanted to roll back regulations, and the point of him rolling back regulations was only to exploit people further at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying? Like he wasn't trying to roll back regulations so he could possibly have enough room to pay people more, or to you know, to give people a better you know, an easier time with the wages or with just the cost of living. He was doing it to make it worse at the end of the day. Like that's what his whole, you know, however he would try to hide, you know, his theories behind something such as, you know, so he wanna take safety regulations back so far to where, you know, a worker's only real protection to the company and like getting hurt at work would be his ability to sue the company for more money, right? So his, you know, in his logic, yeah, it would be more likely for you to work in an environment where you would get hurt, but the way that we force the companies into protecting themselves, or at least giving you a stable environment so you don't get hurt, is like, so when you get hurt, you get to sue for more money, right? So when you think about that, it sounds as if he's attempting to like create a different mechanism that accomplishes the same thing. You know what I'm saying? Like he doesn't want OSHA to tell companies what's safe. He wants to let the companies determine what's safe. And if it's not safe, then their penalty is a big, huge lawsuit from the worker, right? Once they finally get hurt. But it's like the more you listen to him, you understand that even that is a profit-driven move, right? Because you still got to go through the process of who protects those workers or determines, you know, how this person got hurt, so on and so forth. So you just create more scenarios to which, at the end of the day, the law, right, the law of the regulations being rolled back so far that they may not even have to deem whatever just happened an accident, or you know what I'm saying, or control how much money you get for a lawsuit. You know what I'm saying? Like it's really all some kind of flim flam game, to where he wants the rules to be even more slanted in his favor, knowing that whole time like the scales are actually so slanted in the corporation's favor that they cause a damn
Lord,
depression
let me
with
ask you a
the
question,
time,
man.
right? Like, no, but hold up. And my final statement is that, so, you know, at the end of his logic of him wanting to give corporations enough freedom to have unsafe workplaces, and you know, and have that legal in order for them to have more profit. So at the end of all of that, man, you done fucked me up, man, Thunder, bro. Damn, I done
Now,
lost
let
my
me ask you a
last one.
question.
Go ahead.
How do you feel about? Okay, good. So 2007, is that when the banks collapsed?
I think
Right.
it's 7, 8, one of them two.
It's 7 or 8, right? So you had the banks, you had all the banks, you had Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, you had all kind of stuff
7,
happening, right?
8, or 9, one of
And
them.
and,
Something like that.
and then you had what was deemed what was coined as too big to fail, right? So you had the government intervening and saying, "Hey, this company here, this not the company, this bank is too big to fail, and we're going to prop it up. We're going to bail them out," right? And we had the auto industry kind of go through the same thing as well. I think Obama did his the bailouts and stuff like that. So Milton Friedman, I'm not arguing what you're saying about Milton, but I think it's just like, I could look at a number on one side and you see a 6. I see a 6, and you can look at the same number I'm looking at, you see a 9. So I'm looking at when I'm viewing
what Milton was doing. I think he was just saying less government. That that's a conservative viewpoint anyway. Less government is always going to be better for the free markets. It's going to be better for capitalism. It's going to be better for innovation, etc. Now he made some good points and some points maybe so not. So like what you're saying with unsafe workplace, right? So of course there are extremes to everything. You can have a workplace that's very safe, and it appeals to appeals to the handicap, blah blah blah, right? You can do that if well, his viewpoint was that you're a private company. If you want to make a way for a handicap, fine, but if you don't, it shouldn't be the government's role to force you to do so. That's 90% of the in my opinion, that's 90% of the lessons I learned from him. On top of course, like I just said about
But 90% of the legislation that gets put forward is not a regulation, which is a wild thing anyway, right? That's pretty wild for you not to want your business accessible, right, to a customer base.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah.
But when in practice, when they roll back these regulations, it's usually not whether they want to put a handicap ramp in or not, right? Usually those businesses do want to put a handicap ramp in because they want to get everybody's money, right?
No, I was using that as an example, Corey. Don't.
Good example. I hear your example, but usually they don't go for things like that. Usually the government and the things that this guy and people like the Heritage Foundation go for, the regulations that they get rolled back is whether they can contaminate the waters in the air or not, right? Two basic things that you shouldn't be impeding on basic things that people need to live, right? Because the water ain't none of theirs and the water ain't none of ours. The water is everybody's, right?
Yeah.
But these regulations get rolled back to where they don't have any responsibility or red tape to where they have to go around not to contaminate that water and that air. You see what I'm saying?
Again,
and those are the regulations. 9 times out of 10, those are the types of regulations, right, that get rolled back. Those that affect those people in those communities.
Now,
right?
let me give you another
So that's
example.
1 or 2 people out of this corporation, right? You affect whole communities. You affect whole communities, right? So that 1 or 2 people from a corporation can make billions of dollars.
Corey, you work in I worked in manufacturing and food production manufacturing for 15 years, right? So you're working in manufacturing. So in a sense, let's look at OSHA. Let's look at OSHA, right? How OSHA came in and they're doing the thing. For the most part, what they're doing is trying to make it a safe environment, safe work environment, right? I'm sure, Corey, you would agree.
Not only just safe, but also environmentally safe.
That's fine, no problem. But I'm sure you would agree that
OSHA's been rolled back. I ain't seen OSHA since Obama been in office. Just to let you know that.
Oh well, if you worked in food production, you see them. Yes, you do. We have audits every year. But the point is,
that's fine. I don't work in food production though.
Well, I was saying manufacturing, right? So if you okay, the point is,
I don't work in manufacturing either. But go ahead.
All right. So the point is, we look at some of those regulations. Let's just say regulations that you have to abide by on a work site, right? I'm sure you will view some of those regulations as niggas. Y'all, they doing too much. That shouldn't be necessary for me to have to wear my hard hat over in this area where it ain't nothing over my head, right? It's nothing but air. Why I gotta wear a hard hat over here, or why I gotta wear
I hear
eye
that. That's
protection?
one of the most common sayings that I hear. It's one of the most common.
Okay, good.
Actually,
So,
let me tell you a regulation that I've complained about myself.
stay there. You can go where you want to go, but stay there first.
No, I was going to give you another example that I actually have to deal with. But go ahead.
Okay, but Milton, so good. So let's stay with having to wear hard hats in that work area where nothing is over your head. Now, the Milton Freeman would say yes. Now, of course, you're gonna have that. He's the extreme, and then the other extreme. I'm sorry. Milton will say no hard hat shouldn't be required nowhere, and the other extreme would be hard hats are required everywhere. I'm sure Corey and most of the people that work with you would say the middle ground would be if there's some over your head, wear a hard hat. If nothing over your head, don't wear a hard hat. So you need Milton Freeman on his extreme to be able to come to that middle ground. You need that.
Personally, I would say if you ain't in a break area, then you need to have a fucking hard hat on. Me personally, if you're on a job site, I don't give a damn if it ain't nothing but blue sky and clouds over the top of your head, right? Because a head injury don't only come from something falling on your head, right? But and also a hard hat is there to protect you from the sun too. So we don't want you we don't want your ass falling out here too. you know what I'm saying? So again, but I do understand what you're saying, especially about the hard hat, because that's a very, very common complaint. Like, yo, listen, they say the exact thing you said. Oh, it ain't nothing but fucking blue skies out here. Why in the fuck I need to wear a goddamn hard hat? Right? But the thing is, right, they haven't done the impact research. They don't know that, they don't realize that every single day, not someday, not a day here and a day there, every single day, the guys that do my job, cement masons, one of them don't go home. See what I'm saying? And so when you actually doing the research and you actually know the numbers and statistics and what happens and which injuries are most common and why the injuries happening and all the rest of the ins and outs, and then you don't listen to me because I don't feel like wearing my fucking hard hat, right? Because I'm an expert in concrete, not job site safety. See what I'm saying? So you would listen to environmentalists. You would listen to an environmentalist, not a fucking corporation. When it comes to regulatory shit, like who would be the expert? What expert would know how different things impact the environment?
Well, we're not talking about environment. We're talking about safety. We're talking about safety, not the environment.
No. So I gave the example of the safety, right? You don't go to me.
Okay, so you moved on to the environment. Yeah, so you would go to the environment. Yeah, environmentally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
So you don't listen to what the fucking corporation and what some billionaire apologist has to say about regulatory shit. You go to the experts.
Let me give you an argument against that, though.
Field, and then you listen to what they say.
Let me give you an argument against that. So you're old enough. You're 40 in your 40s. I'm 47. So you're old enough to have heard that eggs was bad for you. You was old enough to hear that eggs was good for you, and then it was bad for you, then it was good for you, and then now, okay, everybody's saying it's good for you. You're old enough to hear. To have heard that creatine was bad for you. You was old enough to hear that creatine now is the most researched thing ever on planet Earth, and now creatine is deemed good for you, especially from a mental standpoint, and of course physical. So it's a lot that goes with having the quote unquote professionals telling you what's good and what's not good for you. You see what I'm saying? And just because a professional say
No, you
what's
would
good or
listen to
what's
your
not good,
doctor,
that don't mean
wouldn't you?
Say it again.
Wouldn't you? I wouldn't listen. Like when it comes to like my health and what I eat, I listen to my doctor.
No,
That's
I'm
the
talking.
health. That's the expert that when I talk about an expert. When you talk about that, right? Yeah, you would listen to your doctor because
I think what he's saying
everybody
though,
the
Corey.
eggs ain't good.
No,
Eggs
Corey,
ain't good for everybody.
I think
what
what
I'm
he's saying
saying
though,
is when
Corey,
you're
though.
looking at
Again,
the
though,
FDA,
I apologize, Thunder, but I
no.
don't know if it was me or not. But for a lot of that, you was breaking up. I don't know if it was
Okay,
just for me. Was that just for me,
what I'm
Brass?
Yeah,
Or
no,
did
what I'm
you
he was
break?
talking
he
about.
was clear on YouTube. He was clear on YouTube.
What I'm talking
Oh,
about
okay.
is the Federal Drug Administration, right? I'm talking about the FDA. I'm talking about the USDA. I'm talking about those cats telling us for years how eggs were bad for you. Don't take them. And then now you're hearing how, yes, eggs are
I ain't
good for
never
you.
heard that. When they said that, I missed
Oh,
that
wow.
one. I missed it.
Anybody ever heard that eggs was bad for you? Anybody on the planet?
It was wait, what it was they were saying egg yolk is not beneficial. You should
It
only
was
eat egg white.
cholesterol issue.
Right.
Yeah, they were saying it's
I
cholesterol.
don't. I hadn't.
But even
I
with the
didn't. I never knew
doctors,
any of them.
yeah, but even with the doctors, it was funny that you said the doctors, right? So when you go
Your
for any
doctor,
kind
not
of
the doctor.
No, I was talking
no,
about
yeah, even
government.
your hold on.
I'm not talking about a doctor. I'm talking about government. Government telling you what is good, what to do, etc. Milton Friedman saying, no, this is a free market
No, I
capitalist.
don't
We are
agree with the
free market.
government
Let the
saying whether
market.
you should eat an egg or not. No, I don't. But I've never had the government say to me whether I should eat an egg or not. I just didn't hear that part. I
even with
missed
a
it. I
doctor.
apologize.
Even with a doctor, though, the reason why I keep bringing up the doctor part, Thunder, is because even with your primary doctor, right? There was a time, if y'all do any nutrition thing now, there was a time when your doctor, when you would have like a gastric issue or a nutritional issue, the doctor would put the food pyramid in front of you and say,
100%.
just follow this food pyramid. But come to find out, we found out in later years that the food pyramid is actually upside down.
Upside down.
And that even your primary
maybe
doctor
that
telling
was
you
in the
to follow those.
1970s or something. But my doctor is not gonna put a fucking food pyramid in front of me. I'm just
Maybe not in
I'm just
front
gonna
of
say
you.
that
Hey,
right now.
Corey, you might have the greatest doctor in the listen. You might have the greatest doctor in the world, but I distinctly remember, even like the nurses in school and shit, they would teach the food pyramid. Like this is this,
I
this,
remember
that, and the
that in
other.
school. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then
You had
like
to
your
have your
doctor
4
would say
food
you need
groups.
to eat. Hold on, but the doctor would say you need to drink like your bones. You need to drink more milk, and you need to do this and do that. Now, come to find out,
things that's
damn
for
near the whole
calcium.
world. Right. No, but they would say drink milk though. Now, come to
Milk would
find
be
out,
one of them, but they would have calcium there.
true. That's a fact.
I don't know.
That's a fact. But now, most doctors, if they got any kind of common sense, they know it ain't just specific people that's lactose intolerant. Damn near everybody is lactose. I'm just saying, as it goes over time, we're leaving it specifically up to governmental. I agree. A government should not be telling people not to
Right,
eat.
you would look at your doctor for that. I wouldn't
Yeah.
say go to the government to look at your diet, bro. Now, again, the government should have regulatory power to make sure that those food products, right, have labels on them, informing them about the conditions and process, or informing the consumer about the conditions and process of how that food is made, right? Is it like I like the Surgeon General's, right? Is it free range chicken, right? Or whatever the hell it is, inform the consumer. And that should be something there. But as far as your dietary shit, bro, if you want to eat an egg or not, I would talk to my doctor about that. I wouldn't, but again, I don't know a nigga who ain't, when did eggs be? I never heard him say eggs was bad. I'm sorry. I missed that one. Yeah, I apologize. I never heard him say that one. But,
No problem. It ain't
yeah.
no, I don't expect you to hear everything, but I'm not telling you something that that
I believe you. I believe you.
Where do you stand on Friedman, though, Thunder? Like overall, if you were to say, listen to him, don't listen to him, good guy, bad guy, where do you stand with people like Milton Friedman, Richard Wolff? Where do you stand on them as far as that?
Y'all are nitpicking stuff.
I'm asking you, not what they doing. You, where do you stand? So at least we can get an idea of how you feel about it.
What I'm saying is, with Friedman was he was extreme on some things, right? When you talking about government non-governmental intervention, right? As far as true free market capitalism. Now, of course, that's an extreme, but you need Friedman's extreme to be able to come to a middle ground. You need him. You need him. You need that viewpoint on not just limited government intervention, but damn near no government intervention, and say, nah, we can't do that. No, we got to have some government intervention, right? We got to get this safety aspect together. We got to get this, these regulations together. But you in New Jersey, right? So, True is in New York. This happened. This is when I was actually driving Uber in 2017, I think. So New York.
That's a lie because they do want government intervention.
Who wants government intervention?
Friedman.
Okay, good. So we can read.
If I got up and felt like taking this shit, then he would want somebody to come in and say and blow the whistles and say that's against the rules with Tony.
Oh boy! All right. So when you look at New York, right? So New York.
The wild part is how what I'm saying. That sounded wild, right? For me to go and take his shit, that sounded wild. But when them same motherfuckers take $80 trillion from the working class, like we start making excuses for why they should be able to, why they making some kind of half a piece of fucking sense. Like why what they saying, we start making an excuse about why what they saying after they done committed theft that's been proven.
There goes concrete. That's concrete right there.
Fucked over democracy, done literally fucked over the American democracy and the future of America to compete in the rest of the against the rest of the globe, right? Because all of the Americans is fat, in debt, and can't read.
What are you doing?
No, listen. No, yes, we talking about Milton Friedman, right? Because when I said he do want some fucking government intervention, right? Because when I get up and when the folk get up and start burning in the fucking and looting, then they want all the goddamn government. They start talking about the National Guard and all that fucking shit, right? But when they was stealing, when they was fucking everybody else over, they didn't want no government intervention. See? You see how full of shit. You see how full of shit. Like niggas. This is why he wouldn't be able to beat me in a fucking debate. This is why a nigga like Milton Friedman wouldn't beat me in a fucking debate, because I make shit like that plain. Right? So when I get up and slap your bitch ass, and take your shit, then you want some fucking intervention, right?
Crazy.
But when you slapping me and taking my shit, you start talking about how the government need to be smaller, and we don't want no fucking government intervention. See, that's some wild ass shit coming from a person who done been slapped and taken from.
How can you have used Milton Friedman to get off that shit off? Like, that's wild. But anyway, Friedman promoted a macroeconomic viewpoint known as monetarism, and argued that a steady, small expansion of the money supply was the preferred policy as compared to unexpected changes. He was a very, very vital as far as inflation, right? He was the one that kind of was telling folks how inflation worked and why it was dangerous, how to avoid it. His ideas concerning monetary policy, taxation, privatization, and deregulation influenced government policies, especially during the 1980s. Of course, that was with the late great Ronald Wilson Reagan. All right. So his monetary theory influenced the Federal Reserve's monetary policy in the response to the 2008 financial crisis. Y'all just heard me bring that up. See, I was just kind of slow rolling things all over, right? So you heard me just bring up 2008. So his policies, his theory influenced policy after that 2008 financial crisis, right? So I mean, I think
he wanted to, and then didn't the government intervene? Then they was all with the government intervention in 2008, wasn't they? Which one of them motherfucking billionaires? I want you to point to me a billionaire in 2008 that was crying saying we don't want the government to intervene. Point to one. Tell me which nigga, which bank? Tell me the bank. Tell me the bank. Tell me the corporation.
I said Federal Reserve monetary policy, man. You got to calm
understand
down,
what you said. No, I understand what you said. But you just brought up 2008. You just brought up 2008. And
yes.
Now I want to know from you, right? Was Mr. Boeing, did Mr. Boeing say no? I don't want I want small government. Was he crying then that he wanted small government? Huh?
What are you talking about, Mr. Freeman, man? Or what? How are we gonna do this, Corey?
What about J.P. Morgan? What about J.P. Morgan? Did J.P. Morgan say he don't want no fucking government intervention? In 2008? See? No, he didn't say that then, did he? So what I'm saying is they want all the fucking government intervention when it come to fucking you over, right? But when it come to you trying to get your get back, they say, oh no, I need the government. When it comes to them fucking up, and then they need some help, they need all the fucking government intervention in the world. But when a working class person fuck up and then need some help, then they a fucking welfare queen and a fraud. And we need to get rid of government spending. We spending too. We ain't being fiscally responsible. See? I'm trying to figure out whether we want government intervention or not. Because I think it's a lot of intervening going on. Me personally, I think it's too much intervening going on myself. Right? I'm with Milton Friedman. It's too much goddamn government intervening going on here. Right? Some of it need to stop. I'm not saying all of it, but some of it.
I think you the one need to stop. You the one that intervening.
Let's figure out which kind of government. Let's figure out which kind of government intervening.
You ain't even talking about Mr. Freeman. I wish we would get back to Mr. Freeman. At least talk about that.
I want to know from you and Mr. Freeman here.
Not your
Mr. Freeman. Which kind of government intervention is you? Because y'all just read the whole I think you even read the too big to fail shit, didn't you? Did you read that?
I just brought it up. I brought that up. Yes.
Too big to fail, but you don't want no goddamn. Do you know what that means? But it's too big to fail, right? But you don't want no goddamn government intervention.
No, man, that's right. That was
so
the whole point.
Why the fuck is we intervening when they fucking up? When the billionaires and trillionaires is fucking up, why is the government so eager and why is they so eager to accept government intervention?
Man, you want to talk Obama now. Now you're gonna talk about Barack.
I'm not talking about I'm talking about the corporations.
You ain't talking to Milton, bro. You talking to Barack.
No, I'm talking about the corporations. The capitalists.
What you mean?
The market bros, right? I'm talking about the corporations, them very corporations that's crying and saying they don't want government intervention. They want smaller government, right? That's the business theory or whatever the fuck they said earlier, right? So what I'm saying is your business theory only work as far as the working man, right? When the working man needs some government intervention because you're trying to fuck them, right? Then no,
bro,
we
we
don't
got
need
welfare.
because we don't
We have
need no
welfare.
government.
We have
Absolutely, we
welfare
got
programs
welfare.
right now.
And again,
And I'm
in
telling you, saying
2008,
the
we
same thing
started
about
spending
us.
a lot of money on welfare in 2008. That's what I'm talking
Yeah,
about too. I'm talking about the same
welfare.
thing you
You
talking
ever
about.
heard of
You talking
corporate?
about welfare.
You ever
I'm
heard
talking
of
about welfare too.
talking about corporate welfare? Yeah, you're right.
Absolutely. See, they ain't crying about that kind of welfare and that kind
No,
of government and that kind of government intervention, right? Because they ain't getting $200 in food stamps. You know that, right? You know the corporations, when they get some welfare, do you understand that the corporations, when they get some welfare, they don't get $200 in food stamps? You do know that, right?
no, but that's where the too big to fail. That's where it come from. What you're doing is
That's
talking.
and do
You're
that
talking
sound good to
past your
you?
own point. You're talking past your
I
own point.
absolutely no. I'm not talking past my point. I know what
I
too
think you are.
big to fail is.
Okay, good. So, do you agree with us bailing out those companies that failed during 2008? Let's go with this, then.
Absolutely not.
Okay, good. So you agree with Milton Friedman, then, right?
I do, but see, Milton Friedman don't agree with Milton Friedman and the people who he's sponsoring and the people that he's a spokesman for don't agree with him. They don't agree with themselves. Right? Because they the ones who hollering for the smaller government and not doing welfare. But they collecting more welfare. Listen, they've collected the billionaires today, the billionaires and trillionaires today have collected more welfare than all human beings combined.
Or see, what you're doing is you're trying to put some space between
Welfare
you and
ain't so
Milton
bad
Friedman.
now when it's there.
You're trying to. You're trying to.
But it's a but when it comes to the billionaires and trillionaires. But Corey, when it comes to them getting trillions of dollars, $80 trillion redistributed from the working class.
This is what I mean.
When it comes to the $80 trillion that's been redistributed from the working class to the top 1%, right?
So Howard, you hear how he talking past his point, right?
It's a story, right?
You actually
I'm the Let Corey Cook Club. I'm quiet. I'm in the Let Corey Cook Club. He cooking.
Yeah. So when we talk about redistributing that money back to its rightful owners, right? Because listen, if I go in Mr. Amazon's warehouse, right, and take all his shit out of the fucking warehouse, guess what? The government gonna come and give his shit back to him. They gonna come get me, right? Not only is they gonna give his shit back to him, but I'm gonna have to be held accountable for the shit I stole, ain't I? Huh? Can I get a response?
Or
wouldn't I?
You agree? You agree?
No. I'm asking
agree with Milton Friedman.
That's
and
fine.
what I'm
I already
saying
said
is
I
you're
did. I
talking
already said I
past-
agree with him.
Right.
My problem is he and his people he represent don't agree with him. That's what I'm saying. Milton Friedman and the people that he represents don't agree with him, but I do.
Of course. Self-preservation is always going to trump all this stuff, Corey. Self-preservation is going to trump all that. Right?
So why the fuck is we listening? If he's self-preserving, why the fuck is we listening to anything he's saying then? If he's self-preservation.
So you're saying No, that's what that's the corporate guy. Who you talking about? I don't know why we talking about corporate, anything corporate. We're talking
You
about
talking about
Milton
Milton
Friedman.
Friedman and the people that he represents.
Right. So the
You know
people he
he's a
represents,
spokesperson for corporations, right?
no, let's just
Or did
say
you
that
not
this
know that?
corporation,
Did you not realize
let's,
that?
let's just say that the corporation went under,
Uh-huh.
like the corporation needed a corporate bailout, right?
Mm-hmm.
Milton Friedman said, no, we shouldn't intervene and none of that. Let them fail.
Absolutely.
And
I agree.
you agree,
My
right?
only
But
problem
that
is he don't
corporation,
agree.
but that corporation is going to say, no, bail us out because we are too big to
The people
fail.
that the people that he's a spokesperson for. Yes.
Not a spokesperson. He has his own bro.
He got his own
His policies affected Federal Reserve
Stop.
aspects.
I don't think you
You're
know who
talking
this
about,
guy is, but
I don't think you know. I just read it. I read it out loud.
you read a paragraph about you read a paragraph and now you know him. But fine. I ain't saying you don't, right? Fine, you do know him, right? But what I'm saying is what I know about him, right? He's a fucking spokesperson for corporations. He's an apologist for corporate greed and price gouging and wage theft. That's what he's an apologist for.
I would love for you to back up those claims.
Yeah, he
Listen, I don't listen.
I would
You
love for
don't
you to
have to. I
back
didn't
up
ask
those
you to
claims.
back up I listened to your opinion about him. That's my opinion about him.
No, I'm saying I'm reading.
It's just my opinion.
So,
That's my opinion about him. I've read
it
things
is your
too.
opinion.
Hey,
Yeah.
look. Hey, Thunder, you gotta see it for yourself, then, right? So go to
Well, that-
Google. So go
Yeah.
to Google, right, and ask Google who is the most famous apologist for corporate greed, and just see who they tell you it is.
No. Agree with. I just told you that. That's not what we're
No, but
talking
see,
about.
but you gotta see
We're talking about too
who
big
they
to
think.
fail. That's what
You
we're
talking
talking
about what?
We're
We're talking about too big to fail.
You talking about everything, Thunder.
No,
You
yeah,
really
but you
talking.
I will
Logic
agree.
ain't crazy. You just asked what you just
No,
asked. Well, go ahead, Logic.
listen, man. I agree with him saying he's the spokesperson for corporate greed. That's not what we were talking about, right? We were
But
talking about
you said you didn't believe what I was saying or something. That's what we was talking about.
No,
you
I was saying.
You was just acting like Milton Friedman.
No, you
wasn't
said he was a spokesperson for the companies that were going under. I said, I don't agree with
No,
that.
I didn't say that's
Because
not what I was saying. If you heard me say that, then I apologize. That's not what I was saying.
Okay.
I said he's the spokesperson for corporate greed and price gouging, right? And wage theft. That's what he's a spokesperson for.
Right. And then he said, no, he ain't. And that's when I came in and said, you gotta
I
see for
apologize.
yourself. Type it in.
I apologize, man. I mean, I'm in the hospital and I'm sitting there going in and out, visit my girlfriend, but I apologize.
No, but
I can agree with that.
Type it in and read it for you.
So if you already agree that
No,
he's
you
a
don't have to. I
spokesperson,
agree. We agree with that.
Okay.
so what is your argument? What are we talking about then here?
No, we were talking about too big to fail. That's what I keep telling you, Corey.
Okay, what are you saying about too big to fail?
You don't remember us just talking about 2008? Come on, Corey.
Absolutely. And we talked about, and that's why and we were talking about how in 2008, right, they didn't want less government intervention.
I ain't gonna lie. Have it on your resume, the spokesperson for corporate greed and price gouging and what is that's diabolical. That's on your resume.
That's what crazy. Yeah, that's a little nigga.
I don't see nothing wrong with that. That's capitalism. That's how capitalism looks. That's
right.
it.
That is, you're exactly right. I do agree with that part. That's how it works.
So you can buy a pencil for $1 and sell it for $2. Now, who is that? Is that price gouging? Some people will say no. Some people will say that's capitalism. That's price gouging is usually going to be in the eyes of the beholder.
You know, price gouging has a specific definition, so there's no hemming and hawing about it, right? So you
Well,
can
go
look
ahead.
that up if you're confused about what that means. If you think it's some type of both sides argument to it.
All right, let's see. Price gouging. Price gouging is the practice of drastically increasing the price of essential goods such as food, fuel, medicine, and lodging during a declared state of emergency or crisis, right? So that's what price gouging is. It is a drastically increased price in essential goods.
Mhm.
That's what it is during
So there was
a crisis.
qualifications to be called price gouging,
Right.
right? It's just not
Now,
raising. This is just not charging $2 for the pencil that you bought $1 for, right?
Right. That's not
So
price gouging.
that's all I wanted to get across to you.
And
Like,
for price, you have to add in that it's done during an emergency.
yeah, and during emergency.
Or
I didn't say that.
crisis, or crisis, right?
Right.
Or crisis.
If you
Right? Or
raise
when we
the
having a
prices,
housing crisis, right? And you go and buy up all the fucking houses, right? And then raise the fucking rent. That's called price gouging. Right? When it's a crisis, when there's an unemployment crisis, right? There's a high unemployment crisis, right? And then you raising the prices, the interest at the banks, right? And doing predatory loans, right? Shit like that. That's price gouging.
but price
Yeah.
gouging just for some pushback.
Mm-hmm.
And y'all gonna kill me because I'm playing Clarity Police, but price gouging, that's usually not price gouging. It's usually there has to be some form of an emergency. Now you can call the housing crisis. Hold on. You can call a housing crisis some form of emergency, but it wouldn't fall similar. Price gouging is usually like wildfires. If you're charging more for gas because of house fire, because there's a wildfire and you know that the demand is crazy, or if we about to have a hurricane and a grocery store triples its prices because they know that you need to go there. There's a difference between because I think what we talking about more is like a equity or a market efficiency or something, but price gouging is kind of specific. I'm not saying using the wrong. I know what you're saying. House prices should fall under an emergency similar to a hurricane. So that's why I ain't arguing with you.
It doesn't have to be an emergency. It just has to be some sort of crisis. The thing is, like, everything it's not a direct hit, right? Some things affect things. Some crises affects things indirectly. Y'all do understand that, right?
Yes.
So yeah. So that's why we talk about price gouging today. That's what they talking about. They're not talking about just because A to B. It's not an A to B thing, right? It's usually some indirect thing, some indirect crises that causes the demand and the supply to be strained, right? And in those strains or bottlenecks within the economy or the way that things flow, then people take advantage of that.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? In a nefarious way. So that's basic. I don't listen. I'm not the best definition guy or no shit like that.
It's
But
just that's what the definition. That's how it works. If you look it up, if somebody in here, told him to go look it up, I'm actually saving you from Thunder, because telling Thunder to go look something up.
No, he already did. We already he looked it up already.
Right, but if you actually look it up, somebody in here Google or ChatGPT, would a housing crisis fall under price gouging? So that way, that's a. I just don't.
I don't know that
a
housing crisis wouldn't fall under price gouging. Like, that would be a fucked up way to answer that, right? Is there price gouging due to the housing crisis? Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No problem with that.
So you're not looking that up? What was you saying? Type in there.
Is there price gouging due to the housing crisis?
I just looked it up. It's gonna say No, it says legally, generally, no. The current housing, I don't like looking shit like this up because I know what you mean. So, but it says the current house, that's what I was saying. If Thunder looks this
No,
up,
if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I mean,
no, it's not that
if
you're
there's no
wrong. I
price
understand
gouging
you know
happening,
what we
then
get caught up in?
obviously there's
Corey?
nothing going on. I can't argue with.
No. See, that's right there. Right there. See, that I know, if I know what you mean, that's my issue with ChatGPT a lot of times. If I know what you mean and I know the spirit or the essence of what you're trying to get across, I'm not gonna fight you on it. When you ask Thunder to look it up, y'all about to spend an hour or two, because every ChatGPT or AI is gonna say what this is saying. The current housing affordability crisis in the United States is not classified as price gouging. Price gouging laws apply to temporary emergencies, hurricanes, pandemics, and cover essentials, fuel, food, water, hotels, and in some state, rent increases immediately following a declared emergency. But I know what you're saying. So I agree with what you're saying, but when we get into
I
the
don't know that
weeds, the
ChatGPT can see the rent increases happening.
That's right, exactly. I think it has limitations of like it don't gotta because a ChatGPT doesn't have to buy a house.
I see the rent
It doesn't have to buy a house. It doesn't have to live in society. So it can look from its AI and say, because Friedman, what he would say is that there's not enough houses being built if the prices are going crazy.
That's a real problem. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's what he would say. The solution would be build more fucking houses, allow more construction, and that competition should drive those prices down. He wouldn't say cap prices on an investor taking advantage of
that wouldn't be good for business. You understand that, right? Because that's the problem with the bill that they just passed. Y'all realize that they just passed the housing bill.
The housing bill, yeah.
And the issue that the naysayers was fighting back on is that the homeowners now that's got the houses, because the average house, the medium house then reached $444,000 to purchase the medium house in America. Y'all realize that's like a record. I don't think it's never reached no shit like that ever. Not even, with inflation, when you subtract all of that and all that shit. It never even reached that, right? But the problem is that those people's houses is gonna lose value when they start building those houses. So that's not a good business decision.
But you know what I like about the new bill, though?
Mm-hmm.
I don't like everything about any bill, but there's one part of this I really do like.
Mm-hmm.
When I think it should the fact that it limits companies like BlackRock from acquiring so many single-family homes. It might not ban the corporate ownership completely, but limiting how many fucking single-family homes they could buy. I think that's a walk. Not a walk. It's a step in the right direction. And then somebody can come behind that in the coming years and fix that issue completely, if that makes sense.
And I'm not saying they shouldn't own any, but as many as they own is again predatory, and I would say it's a form of price gouging. I mean, I don't know.
I think we have a shortage of homes. I agree. I would agree with what Friedman would actually say right here. Because with me, this is right up my alley. This is what I do. And if I told y'all, I don't know how many of y'all have built a house, but I've been involved in a lot of selling and wholesaling and a lot of creation of homes and communities. And if y'all had to go through the hoops, and I say this because my dad, that's what he did after he, kind of got out of political life. That the amount of zoning rules and land use policies and all of that shit you got to do to simply build a home, I can't imagine, as a corporation, I can't imagine how a person who wanted to build a home and got the funding to build a home, it would be damn near impossible for them to get to the end of it. With the amount of people that need homes to fight to build them is crazy.
It's easier to convert already buildings. Yeah, but it also the bill also allows not just the zoning to build new homes, right, but to use some of those existing buildings and be able to convert them into lower income housing. Right. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that the bill actually is I kind of skimmed through it a little bit, and I heard Elizabeth Warren talking about it a little bit the other day. I can't find nothing that I don't really like. I'm sure is some.
Oh no, there's some
in there, but
there's some
I
shit in
can
that
see
bill.
anything. And I was really skeptical because it's a bipartisan bill. But surprisingly, I would say it's a pretty good damn bill, actually.
I was looking for some form of nationwide rent control, and the renting in the United States of America has gotten out of control. If you rented a studio, because these are the things I focus on as being a landlord. Even me, like I said, in New York City right now, when they show apartments in New York City, it's 2,000 people trying to get one apartment.
Yeah. That's
the studio apartments. When I first went into business, when I was like 16, 17 years old, and my father started showing me the business. When I started looking at that shit, studio apartments used to be like $300.
I remember.
Studio apartments now, and the studio would have enough room for you to have a bed, a place to put your TV, a kitchen, or at least a cooking area with some kind of cooking utility, and a bathroom, right?
Yep.
So it would be like a room with like small rooms outside of it. Now, a studio in New Jersey, it doesn't have to have a cooking element of any kind. It only has to have access of a bathroom of 7 to 1. So if it's 7 rooms on a floor, if there's a bathroom on that floor, that counts as like a bathroom. And now it doesn't cost $300. There are studios in the state of New Jersey that cost $2,000.
Absolutely.
So now you had a situation where, and if I go to New York, there's some that cost $4,000. You know what I'm saying? So now you're at a situation where even if you say, there's something behind it when you say, well, there's enough apartments, we've reached the number. This is kind of like that Friedman rule, where you say, like, well, within the rules, we have X amount of domiciles. Yeah, but who the fuck can afford a $2,000 studio?
Right.
So it's a little, it's not and then on top of that, with the evictions and the rent hikes and and on top of that, Corey, what I was looking for in any housing bill is all we're talking about is the people that can afford houses and live in them, or can afford housing. This bill doesn't address homelessness. Like when we talk about housing in the United States,
before you change subject,
it will mitigate the homelessness. It doesn't address homelessness directly, but it will mitigate the homelessness because it's people that actually got jobs. I was listening to this teacher who grades paper in their car because they live in their car.
And they live in their car. Yeah.
Yeah. So like when the housing becomes affordable, like at least those types of people, right? That's working but just can't afford an apartment because it's not enough. And not only that, again, they raising the prices on the ones that is available.
But the bill doesn't roll back. And real quick, Howard, before you go. So if you got property, you'll understand what I'm saying, or you're a landlord, you understand what I'm saying. During COVID, there are properties and there are people, and y'all don't care, right? But I'm doing this from the ownership side, not the tenants. During COVID, there were people that could pay that just didn't pay because the state and federal governments were essentially you weren't allowed to evict. You couldn't evict during COVID. And that's morally and ethically correct. But here's what they didn't do. And I know y'all don't give a fuck, right? I get it. But I still had to pay mortgages on those properties. So so we're talking about 2, 3, 4 years where they didn't lift the eviction moratorium, they called it. So after COVID, you weren't able to go back and get all of that money. You were able to evict the person, but by the time you evicted them, they would go and just go get another place. And now you're out X amount of dollars, this, that, and the other. And then there was some relief towards the end, but it wasn't even close to what it put out financially. Here's the crazy part, though. After COVID, what we're seeing now is not just institutional in the terms of the government and the economy. What you're seeing now is landlords getting together and kind of saying, in street terms, getting some get back of saying, like, I don't give a fuck, because they didn't give a fuck. And then now you're pitting people against people, one an owner, one a tenant. But in the same token, it was like, everybody, like, so you could just leave my shit, go somewhere else, and then now other landlords, we all got, I'm not proud of this, but I am proud of this in the same token, because it offered there's not a lot of landlord to landlord communication, because we're in competition with each other. But we most certainly got together, and New Jersey passed something, and New Jersey gave us some relief of saying, yeah, we could reject these people and actually look at their history and call that last guy and see what the fuck. Because for a long time, you couldn't. It was called discrimination. But now we can see, like, if you left a $30-some thousand bill with the last guy, we gotta address that shit somehow before I rent to you. And we were able to add that as a stipulation. Normally you can't do that. But go ahead, Howard.
Yeah,
I know
my
y'all don't
question
want
was
to
a
hear
simple.
about those kinds of issues, I'm sure.
Mine was a simple question. It kind of relates to what you own right now. What is the profit margin that you guys look for when you're in that type of business?
What do you mean by that?
Like
Be more
say
specific.
you buy a home to rent it out, and your mortgage is $800. What percentage of that? Like, say if it's then you rent it for $1,200. What would that's like, what, 50% profit margin or something like know what I'm saying?
Like
What profit
70,
margin
60, like 60, 70.
60, 70? Okay.
Yeah.
That's
What
something
I'm
I
looking
never knew. I always
that's
wanted
what
to
I'm
know.
looking for. But between Section 8, Section 8 is not going to give you that. But but you get security when you get Section 8. So security of Section 8 is I don't have to be concerned about them paying, but I'm not going to be able to charge within legal bounds of what I get. And then also I can't increase 6%. So you can increase roughly 6% per year legally, roughly. But with Section 8, there's some rules that whatever. Section 8 tenants are the worst tenants I have, but I do have at least the security of that money is in there 4 to 5 days before the month even begins. So Section 8 usually pays like 3 or 4 days before the beginning of the next month. Guaranteed, no matter what. It's like clockwork. Matter of fact, what's today? Yeah, so yeah, it's like clockwork. But yeah, you're looking at 40 to 70%, because on top of that, you got to remember, I got to deal with the taxes and the maintenance. You don't have that concern. So there's costs that you don't understand. You think it's just, I just paid this, that, and the other. If something go wrong, my tenants are not liable at all. So there's property taxes, there's insurance, there's just reserved for the maintenance. There's a vacancy reserve I got to deal with. And not to mention, my miscellaneous could go anywhere from $0 to $5,000 on one unit. when it got cold here for like, and this is all shit don't nobody care about. I feel like an asshole even talking about it, but even when it got cold here during the winter,
No. It's
y'all.
cool because people are complaining about the price of rent. So I know there's a profit margin within that price. So I was just wondering about how much it is, that businesses with what they're looking for. So no, you good. You good. It's
So
good
remember,
information
like
to know.
I get the benefits of my father and my grandfather being in business for so long, but being a new landlord with the interest rates that they're going to get charged on property, like we have the ability to buy multiple properties. If you can only buy one, or say you doing that bullshit on the not home shopping network. What's that channel? HGTV, flipping houses and shit. Those guys, the thing they're not telling you is their interest rates is like 2, because they're buying 10 at a time. They're just showing you the one they're working on. But if you're just trying to buy one, you're fucked. That interest rate, you won't be able to make damn near anything. You almost got to operate at a loss for like a year or so. Maybe I should do a show. No, I ain't doing that shit. But I get it. I get it. But y'all go ahead, bro. I told you don't want to hear about, nobody want to listen to no ownership problems. This is a tenant-ish conversation we having, not an equity conversation. So I'm assuming everybody's done.
Y'all know my expenses. I gotta buy bigger plates.
Yeah, like
Baggies,
don't nobody,
more
that's what I'm
baggies.
saying. Don't nobody want to hear that shit. I promise you. Don't nobody want to hear that shit. DQ, remember when it was cold, it was like -10 for like 10 days. I had 7 pipes burst. And that's like 60, 70,000.
At different properties. I remember
Yes.
you going there with that stuff.
Yeah,
Yes,
bro.
sir.
Remember, I was like, the whole street, I can't do shit. The whole fucking street is a sheet of ice. I was outside, but you don't want to hear that shit because it's like, that's not the part that you see. So when
They
you're
gonna hit
trying to
you with
get
that
clarity on
I remember that when you was outside dealing with them, the goddamn
I
snow
showed
and
y'all how
ice. I
cold it
remember that
was.
shit.
Shit. It's like, man, fuck y'all. Y'all in this bitch talking about netters and shit. I'm freezing my goddamn ass off every day for like 2 months straight. Because you remember there was parts of Jersey. If you was in Jersey, there was streets you just couldn't get on. And as soon as you could get on the street, it fucking would snow another 16 inches. And then on top of that, DQ, you gotta pay to put them up in them hotels. Because your property is unlivable. So now I'm paying for fucking hotel bills for 10 different fucking families.
What they hit you with, Brad? You got it.
Yeah, wait. My dad said you got it, nigga. Because I'm complaining to him like, bro, he was like, The here's like the storm in 95, 96, 97. Yeah. You got to deal with all of that shit. He said, but your ass still wanted them sneakers and still wanted this. I just don't complain. You just a complaining motherfucker. But you got it. He said, so it is what it is. But but I don't, if you are in an ownership position, to anybody to the sound of my voice, y'all ain't got to have no compassion for owners, but y'all really don't understand what an owner has to pay for versus what you think he has to pay for. That's all I'm gonna say. Y'all don't really get that part in these conversations. And I guess y'all ain't supposed to care. But it ain't easy, bro. But once again, y'all go ahead,
So
bro.
you're trying to tell me that you couldn't go to your insurance people and be like, hey, these homes are unlivable, and so they're gonna pay to get some of the shit fixed through your insurance. Plus, since those homes are unlivable, then they do have to pay you to be insure you to be in the hotel for a couple of days too, right? Can it go down like that? I'm just asking. I don't know.
No, it can go down like that, but usually what happens is insurance companies, specifically New Jersey manufacturers, shouts to y'all, I love y'all, this is not a diss to y'all, but the way it works here is you do an investigation. They don't pay you out immediately. So to even get it to the point where you ain't lying and get it to be liberal, that comes out of you. That comes out of your finance. That's what I mean by maintenance reserve. I put the word in reserve. There's a certain level of those profits at 60, 70%. That I gotta put to the side as a reserve just to take care of that till later. Now, by the time they pay you and they do their investigation, they're paying you based at certain prices, this, that, and the other. So what might cost me 70, 80,000 to get this done in 2 weeks, they'll give me 45, 50,000 9 months later after they're done with their investigation. But where are my tenants gonna live at that during that time? They don't want to hear that shit. One of the things that I do with new tenants that helps, but it kind of offsets costs, is every person that has an apartment and that can hear my voice, pay that fucking $100 and some to State Farm or one. I recommend State Farm or Allstate for renters insurance, so that you can be protected, because there aren't a lot of landlords that
If
will
you're
even
renting
follow
and
that
don't
shit.
have rental insurance, you're crazy.
Right. Because you may never use it, but God forbid if you ever need to, they respond immediately to you. But me as a corporate, as a business owner, they won't look at me that way. They'll say to me the same way DQ just said it. You know what they'll say to you? You got it. Figure it out. So there's a lot of landlords that don't do that, but I deal a certain portion of our portfolio goes to specifically single mothers. It ain't by race. It ends up being a lot black and brown and people of color, but we don't specify by race, but we definitely focus on single mothers. Like if I can choose between a group of this, that, and the third, I'm gonna choose a single mother every time. Because I think that those are the people that in the housing crisis, I think they need it personally, in my opinion, more than anybody else. I do mine by scale, not by, whatever. So if that makes sense. But y'all go ahead, bro. Don't nobody want to hear about no motherfucking ownership problems, bro. Most motherfuckers is like, shut up. Y'all keep talking about Milton Friedman's the devil or whatever the hell y'all was talking about.
Well,
Good
to me, it's
afternoon, brothers.
learning
Good
leadership.
afternoon.
What's going on,
What up,
Josh?
Jossie? What up,
Shut up.
Jossie?
Well, it's out the mud. Hey, well, shouts to y'all on YouTube. Thank y'all for coming out. I don't know, like y'all got something else? Matter of fact, I do have one other thing. I want to give a shout out to Odell Beckham Jr. And it's funny in this conversation. How do y'all feel? And I don't know why this keeps happening. How do y'all feel about all these motherfucking athletes making $200 and $300 million on podcasts now for some reason, complaining that it ain't enough money for their fucking lifetime? See, this is why I give clarity. Go look up Odell. I wish I could play the video right now. These motherfuckers is on podcasts talking about you don't understand the taxes and you don't understand this and you don't understand that. And it's like I'm listening to y'all talk about y'all fellow man and corporations, but then to hear a nigga worth 100, 200 plus million still be complaining about taxes and y'all don't gotta live and y'all don't know what my monthly expenses are. What fault do y'all place at their feet? The guys who actually make it amongst us. Is it just the New York Giants or is it Odell Beckham too? Do you look at that guy like, don't nobody want to hear that shit?
He has to make better lifestyle choices then, Brad. If he made $200-300 million and that motherfucker complaining, then he need to make better lifestyle choices. And might not need 15 cars. Might not need
Did you see the what's the
Balenciaga.
name?
No, I didn't. I'm just going off by what you said.
Go. While we here, just look it up. I was watching it and my blood was boiling. Because I know the conversations we have in here is like motherfuckers trying to get to that point. But then now you got a and this ain't even talking about his brand deals, his Instagram deals, and all this other shit. And he like 200 million ain't enough to live on in a lifetime. That shit, you so out of touch. I don't get it. But I'm gonna assume everybody busy, bro. I'm trying to hold on to this conversation, but I don't even really got nothing to talk about. So we're all done. This is Out the Mud. Shouts to y'all. We out.